You are, no, my chickens. Oh my gosh. Yeah, 8. I have 8 chickens, 8 yesterday, 7 today on eggs.
Wow.
I don't want to hear about it.
You don't have any?
No, we don't have any chickens. We just want the eggs.
Well, Brian, you know where I live. Come get some. I'm gonna mute now.
Okay.
We have 14 chickens and we're getting anywhere from 10 to 12 a day.
Wow, what kind of chickens?
I don't know. They're my wife's. They're money pits. Let's put it that way. That's what kind of chickens they are.
Oh, I understand that one.
Brian,
No,
do you want
well,
to get started? I see it's
yes.
5:01. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yes, I want to. This is Brian Bates. I'm the co-chair of the Doney Park Timberline Fernwood Area Planning Committee. And I'm calling the meeting to order on April 8th, 2021. Melissa, I think the first thing we need to do is to go through and see who is here from the committee. And then we'll find out who's here from the public.
I can do that. I've been keeping a list.
Okay, Jessica, if you could just kind of do a roll call. Melissa, do you think we need to be introducing ourselves again? We've
Just have the committee go around real quick. I think that would be good. And then we'll do a roll call of community members.
Okay. So I'm Brian Bates. I've lived in the region for approximately 40 years, and I am the co-chair along with Rob. My brain's gone dead.
Wilson.
Thank you. Okay. So Jessica, you want to call out committee members and have them introduce themselves quickly?
Sure, Dave.
Hey, Browning, lived here since '06 in Doney Park, retired Navy, and like it here. I've lived all over the world. So
Great. Jim.
Jim Clifford, committee member and District 4 Planning and Zoning Commissioner. Been in the area for a long time.
John.
Okay, John Ruggles, District 2 Planning and Zoning Commissioner. Been in Arizona. I'm a short timer. Only been a little over 50 years now.
Evelyn.
Evelyn Wani, been in this area for 10 and in Flagstaff for 50.
Rob.
Rob Wilson, I live in Timberline for the last 13 years, Flagstaff for 21, and I co-chair with Brian Bates.
And then Monica.
I'm Monica Julian. I've been in the area 33 years, Arizona since the day I was born. And I'm from the original, the group that wrote it 20 years ago.
Did you want to do any staff introductions, Melissa?
Sure, go ahead, Jessica.
Oh, I'm Jessica Simmons, county staff.
Melissa Shaw, County Long Range Planner. Who else is
Jay
with us?
Christman, Community Development. Good evening.
Jacob?
And
Oh, I'm Jacob Moff. I'm a planning and zoning intern.
And then I think Kelly's connecting right now. So in the meantime, I will call out who I see for members of the public. I've got William Leroy, Barbara Greenlees, Sheila Walsh, Doug Meyer, and Russell Weedman. Did I miss anyone who's a member of the public who's on the meeting? And then Kelly, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Yeah. Hi, I am Kelly Bingham. I'm the new planner with Coconino County. So I just started a couple of weeks ago and I'm excited to learn more about this project.
Great. Thanks, Kelly. And then I see we have Naomi on.
right.
Yes. Hi. This is Naomi Ozzie Sloan. I'm with District 4, Coconino County Board of Supervisor Judy Begay's office.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, folks. So let me share with folks that our purpose in this meeting, of course, is to work on the long-term plan for the Doney Park, Timberline, Fernwood region. Tonight, we're going to be going through a couple of the specific documents that we will be editing so that the entire committee agrees with it. Melissa has guaranteed us that she will have a puppy deliver pizza to your door, maybe. But at any rate, I do want to remind folks that we will begin here shortly with comments from the public. Members of the public will have 3 minutes to address the committee. And then we will proceed with our meeting, and we will have public comments at the end of the meeting. Again, 3 minutes per person. So we ask those of you who are in the that are public members, we very much welcome you in our meetings. And we ask that during the course of our committee meeting that you allow us to conduct our business. And if you have ideas, please write them down. You can share them on chat, or you can wait for the end of the meeting for public comment at that point, or email them to Melissa. Finally,
Brian, excuse me, I do see Bernice has joined us.
Bernice, would you please introduce yourself?
I guess she'll be back.
Okay. With that, are we ready to move on, Melissa? By the way, I don't have the agenda in front of me. I forgot to print it off.
I've got the agenda and Bernice is back, so I'll flip to the agenda right there. Bernice, did you want to introduce yourself quickly?
Sure. I'm Bernice Carver. I've lived in the area over 44 years, and I've been on the committee since inception. I'm really wanting to keep the character of Doney Park like it is. So I feel privileged to be on this committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Bernice. I lost my train of thought, Melissa. I think we're ready to move on to public comment. Is that accurate?
We are. Here's the agenda. We'll do public comment, and then we'll review the meeting notes and review the vision statement, and then jump into the goal and policy review, the schedule, and then the final public comment period. So with that, here are the, we're into the public comment.
Okay, let me remind folks, if you would, please mute yourself during the meeting unless you are speaking. And if you want to be recognized to speak, then raise your hand if you will. With that, do we have anyone from the public who has a comment this evening?
Yes, this is Russell Weedman. I was expecting you to do introductions for the public. So I'm Russell Weedman. I've been a resident of the Doney Park Timberline area for about 41 years now. And
Russ, if I can interrupt, we have decided between Rob, myself, Melissa, and others that we want to know who from the public is here. When you speak, you know, maybe very quickly tell us about yourself. But we're trying to save time because we find we have lots of material to cover this evening.
Okay. Well, I told you who I am.
Yeah.
Right. I've been living in the area for 41 years, and I was involved with a youth hockey program in Flagstaff. I coached for 13 years there and coached the first high school hockey team, and that year we won the Rocky Mountain District Championship, which the kids were pretty proud of, including myself. I do have a short comment to make. It was about something that I brought up in last month's meeting, and it was about in the other policies section in the 2000 area plan, policy number 4, and it was about the engine brake policy and how the county was going to work with the Department of Transportation on getting a sign put up on 89. And I think it was Monica that said she got that in there and that a sign was put up. And I took a drive up there yesterday again, and there is no sign And I went all the way up past the entrance to Sunset Crater and then drove back down the south. And I was wondering how you would go about, or how we would go about getting another sign put up out there. If anybody would have any information on that.
Thank you, Russ. I don't have any information myself. Is there anybody else on the committee that can respond to Russell's comment?
Hey, Russ, this is Rob Wilson. ADOT owns that road. They control the signage on the road. So we would have to speak directly with them in order to get signs added to that particular section of Highway 89.
Yeah, apparently there was one up there before, and I know the city of Flagstaff has signs right at the entrance into the city limits. They have a no engine brake policy. And it's not just 89. There was a community member that mentioned something at one of your meetings about engine brakes at Silver Saddle and 89. That was before I even brought it up, and I don't know if anybody recalls that. But
so Russell, this is Melissa. If I could just chime in here, I do know that in the draft, I believe it's community character section. There is a draft policy that does address engine brakes. And so that's something though that, you know, the community would need to work on. I think if there's an immediate, you know, concern, then, you know, Rob is correct that right of way is controlled by ADOT. And I'm sure they would be open for direct communication about that. But there is a draft policy in the draft plan or in the goals and policies that does address this exact issue. So just so you know that is something that you're right, it was brought up and it was captured.
Yes, okay, well, I'm glad to hear that. And who would go about doing this?
Well, I mean, if you wanted to contact ADOT or any community member wanted to contact ADOT at this point, that is certainly, you know, within your ability to do that. You know, we're in the process of trying to get this plan drafted, and, you know, at the end, there'll be an implementation section, and, you know, the community will prioritize what to work on. There's a lot in this plan to do. So I'm going to just note, though, we do try to keep, there might be some other people who want time to comment, and so we're at the 3-minute limit here.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Russell. Any other community members that would like to offer a comment?
This is Sheila Walsh. I've been a property owner in Doney Park for 37 years. And I did submit the letter that John Ruggles encouraged me to do. And I understand it's been distributed to the committee, but I wondered if I could take a minute to read it for the record.
Go ahead.
So this was March 29th, 2021. Dear committee members, John Ruggles requested that I submit my comments / concerns in writing at the March 25th supplemental meeting held to complete the unfinished agenda for the March 13th regular committee meeting. Thank you for this opportunity. As a 37-year property owner in the Doney Park area, a 4-H parent, a pony club parent, a horse owner and enthusiast, I am concerned about the 29 miles of the final report Doney Park Multimodal Transportation Study. At least 19 of the miles are paved trails, 8 to 10 feet wide. These trails are supposed to be for slow speed biking, but I was told by the organizer of this project that the bicycle road racing community was looking forward to having these trails for high-speed training through our neighborhood. This was in 2010. He stated they train at 35 miles an hour. Most of our street speed limits are 25 miles per hour, with some arterial roads set at 35 miles per hour. This is a safety hazard for strollers, dog walkers, and other slow speed bikers, not to mention horseback riders that will be using these trails and crossing these trails. I would support that all trails be shared use and composite material like packed cinders, in keeping with preserving our rural lifestyle in our area and discouraging road race training on these trails, which is a safety hazard. I'm also concerned that impaired drivers will use these trails as roads for their vehicles. further causing hazardous conditions. By having composite material such as cinders, the cost would be cut dramatically and there would be no need to obtain separate eminent domain of frontage on both sides of the streets included in this project. As written, this project will cost tens of millions of taxpayers' dollars. I do not believe our rural neighborhoods need to become paved over. I believe the majority of property owners feel the same way, especially the rising number of horse owners. Slow speed bike riders can use composite material trails or path, as can pedestrians. It's imperative to me that our current trails throughout our neighborhoods not be paved or cut off. These trails have been in our neighborhood for decades and are in good shape. Further, I see that Flagstaff City has flexed their zoning to allow for density increases in neighborhoods. I do not feel that allowing fourplexes, such as what is happening in residential neighborhoods in and around Sacramento, is appropriate for our rural area. Animal keeping is why we are out here, and adding multifamilies next door would be a disaster and or a constant source of conflict. Animal keeping is limited to specific pets in the city for a reason. Every area plan for our neighborhoods has had the overwhelming desire to keep our area rural by its residents. I believe we can make progress without losing our character. Once we lose our character, we cannot get it back. Sincerely, Sheila Walsh. Thank you so much for letting me share my comments tonight.
Thank you, Sheila. Are there any other community members that wish to speak?
Yes, I would.
Yes, sir. Who am I speaking with?
This is Doug Meyer.
Okay, Doug?
My quick question to the committee, it may be, maybe Melissa can answer. This is regarding dark skies, the basic subject of dark skies. I've been reviewing the documents that were provided to Will Leroy, and it appears that the dark skies goal and policy has been moved to the community character, culture, and history chapter. There's a note at the beginning of that chapter which basically says there are no goals or policies in this chapter, in effect. So my question is, does that make sense to have any goals and policies in that chapter? And to the committee, is the committee done with dark skies? There is a goal listed in the chapter, and it's basically one sentence that says dark night skies and the dark night landscape are preserved by complying with the requirements of the Coconino County Lighting Ordinance. End quote. That's the end of that sentence. So my question is just, is this dark skies going to be revisited by the committee, or are you finished with it? Thanks very much.
Thank you, Doug. My understanding is that we moved that to community character, and I thought we had 3 or 4 goals. Is that accurate, Melissa?
I believe there's one goal and several policies that are associated with the goal, and that was moved to that that section. There are a few existing goals and policies related to dark skies, so those would be continued. And the committee has finished with their initial review of the draft, but then of course these will all be available for public review during the open house phase. So,
Melissa, William Leroy, may we get copies of those initial reviews prior to the public meeting?
Of course, everything will be made available to the public once the open house is organized. Yes.
I understand. May we get copies of those preliminary reviews and comments prior to the open house?
You can email me, and I have been providing you with documents. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And Melissa, I believe all of this is online at the website for the planning committee. Is that accurate?
All of the agendas.
No, Brian, it's not actually. The planning
Mr. Leroy, please, I am in a conversation.
No, I apologize. I apologize, sir. Continue.
Okay, so I believe all of these documents, many of these documents are online, and I would direct you to the website for the committee if you have questions or concerns, so you can clarify what it is we have and haven't done.
Yes, and I will clarify that we will post all of the final drafts on there. The working documents have not been posted, but all of the agendas and meeting videos are available where that shows the committee's active work on these. So yes.
Here's my hand. So I'm raising a hand, and I realize it's only have 3 minutes, so I'll give you 3 seconds. Is there a reason why the public can't see the working documents?
We will, of course, the public can see the working documents, and we'll put them up as soon as the final drafts are ready. Yes.
I understand, but the final drafts are not the working documents. The working documents are what are being discussed. Final documents are final documents.
Yes, we'll
So
put them up there.
in other words, if the public wants to have input into the final documents, they have to see the working documents. Is that not logical?
We will post all the documents on our website.
That's not an answer. If I'm a lawyer, and if I was in court, I'd say that's not responsive.
Well,
at the end of the day, the public wants to have input into what you all are planning. So we can't do that. Yes, sir.
If I believe that
I'm happy to drop off. I mean, no, I get the gist. I'm already there. I'm happy to drop off, Brian. I'm happy to drop off. The whole reason I'm playing the antagonist is because you all are being dismissive and obfuscating. Okay, you follow me? So send me the planning documents that are in development, and then the public can input into the planning developments that are in development, and then maybe we just might have some input into the final documents.
Everyone in Doney Park, Timberline, and Fernwood has that option. You can go online, read those documents. You can share with Melissa.
Brian, you're missing what I'm saying. I'm talking about what you're doing with the working documents, sir.
Okay, so the working documents, the drafts are our working documents. We're working from the previous plan, and that previous plan is available online, as well as the edits that we are making to that. These are not finalized. These are the working documents that you've been reading. I'd like to move on. We have a lot of work to do this evening. Melissa, do you have any other comment?
Not unless there's someone else from the public who would like to speak.
I don't hear anyone else. Let's move on. And I think the next thing we're going to do is to review the meeting notes from March 11th and March 25th. I'm going to mute myself, and I ask that everyone else mute yourself unless you are speaking. Thank you.
Brian, did you want to ask the committee for concurrence on the meeting notes?
Don't we ask for that after we review them?
The committee has those, and they have reviewed them. And if anyone has any comments or clarifications, then this is when they would bring them up.
That you're correct, Melissa. That was my mistake. So does anyone on the committee have comments on the meeting notes from March 11th or March 25th?
I would move that we accept the minutes as provided.
I hear a motion.
I was raising my hand, I thought, but I was going to say there are some things in there that I was reading it incorrectly. I was not reading it as minutes. I was reading it as something that we needed to edit, and that's not correct. So I agree with the minutes.
Thank you, Dave.
Okay, if you want a second on that, I'll be happy to do that.
So I have a second. All committee members in favor of accepting the review meeting notes from March 11th and March 21st. I misstated that, March 25th. Please say aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? The meeting notes are accepted.
Brian, and I didn't know if you wanted to pause here. Sailor joined us.
I did notice that. Sure, let's allow Sailor to share very quickly.
Sorry, I'm late, folks. Trying to fit everything in with work, but I am Sailor. I live out here in Doney, and I've been out here for quite some time, over a decade, almost 2 decades now, out in the area. And I love living out here. And I work for the Red Cross. And I think I'm just being really fast and informal about this. So if there's anything I should have said, let me know.
Thank you, Sailor. Melissa, let's move on, please.
Okay, thank you, Brian. Just to refresh everybody's memory about the scope of the planning area that we're working on, here's our map that shows the Doney Park, Timberline, Fernwood planning area in the dark outline. And then the next item on the agenda is to review the draft vision statement. And this was as it was revised on March 11th. And we'll be reviewing this each time. So the current draft has 4 categories: natural resources, open space, environment, community character and values, land use, growth, development, partnerships, and transportation.
Melissa, Dave has a question.
Yes, from my agenda, it said there were 2 of the minutes that had to be reviewed. March 11th.
There are.
We only did March. Did we do both of them?
I thought I heard Brian
Yes.
say both.
Oh, okay.
I did say both, Dave.
Okay. But all right, then I agree. Okay.
Let's go ahead with the review of the vision statement.
Okay. The first category is natural resources, open space, environment. I'll go ahead and read it in case somebody can't see the screen. Our community's priority for the future of Doney Park, Timberline, Fernwood is to maintain and protect the natural environment, resources, and open spaces that reflect our rural lifestyle and values. We value the biodiversity of our native flora and fauna and the open space that surrounds our community. Access to public lands, trails, and multi-use path systems is important to maintain our quality of life, and we encourage our partners and neighbors to establish safe and legal access easements to these amenities.
Are there any comments from the committee members as to the vision statement? Hearing none, let's move on to the next draft vision.
The next one is community character and values. Our community character is influenced by our rich cultural and historic diversity, natural environment and open space, expansive vistas, dark skies, the natural quiet, and rural lifestyle. The diversity of our community is reflected in our history and place names: Doney Park, Timberline, Fernwood, Winona, Cosnino. Our closely connected community reflects our independent lifestyle, recognizes our reliance on each other for social support, and strives to be inclusive, fair, and safe. Our community character is reflected in large lots, a variety of building styles, and a recognition of geographic differences that reflect the country living we value.
Any committee members have comments?
Country needs an R.
What'd you say, Bernice?
Thank you, Bernice.
Country needs an R.
Thank you. I thought I caught that last time.
Okay. Hearing no other comments, let's move to the third vision, please.
Land use, growth, development, and partnerships. Our area plan supports responsible land use and planned growth that maintains our rural lifestyle and character. We embrace a future that accommodates new residents while ensuring that new development is integrated into our community in a manner that respects cultural and historic resources, supports community values and aesthetics, and considers the environment and long-term viability of natural habitat and water resources.
Comments from the community, from the committee? Hearing none, let's move to the fourth and final vision statement.
Okay, transportation. The transportation system in Doney Park, Timberline, Fernwood integrates and connects multimodal facilities for transit, pedestrian, bicycle, and equestrian users throughout and beyond the planning area. Our future envisions transportation corridors that are safe and accessible for wildlife, motorists, and all non-motorized users. Enhanced opportunities for transit and commuter options are possible at key locations throughout the planning area.
Comments from committee members? Hearing none, let's move on to our next agenda item.
Okay.
Melissa, if I may, I want to remind folks to mute themselves, if you will, please. And then raise your hand if you have a comment. Thank you. Go ahead, Melissa.
Thank you. So this chart shows the different chapter reviews that have been completed, the goals and policies for each chapter. And we are tonight going to be reviewing design review guidelines and land use growth and development. The transportation and circulation section is still under review, and we'll talk about that schedule later on, but that will be ready for your next meeting, whether that be in May or possibly earlier if you choose to do that. Oops, and with that then, pardon me, I will go back one. We can jump off this view and go right into the documents. Brian, I would suggest possibly looking at the design review guidelines first. It's up to you though. The land use growth and development section is longer. So design review guidelines might be quicker to get through, and then we can get into land use growth and development.
I'll follow your lead. I believe design review guidelines would be good to start with.
Okay, I'm going to stop sharing this and get into the other view. Is that large enough to see? I'll make it as large as I need to.
That's right.
Sorry.
Right, that size is good for me.
Can everybody see that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And
Yes.
John Ruggles helped us update this chapter. John, did you have any comments before we get into it?
Yeah, just a couple of things. For the rest of you, I was kind of explaining to Melissa before we got started that the other three people that worked on this were all planners, and that as long as I've been involved with planning and zoning and land use, my point of view tends to agree very much with the way planning professionals look at things. So that may temper some of my opinions that entered into this. And they're probably less along the lines of public input than everyone else's. So sometimes being in a position like that, you tend to lose sight of what public input should be and how valued it should be in doing documents like this, policy documents like this, I might add. So that's about it.
Thanks, John. And so just to remind everybody what the design review overlay is, this is actually used to evaluate, so the Planning and Zoning Commission uses these guidelines here when they're evaluating commercial, industrial, and if there are ever any multifamily projects, anything but single family. The Planning and Zoning Commission would be reviewing those projects for consistency with these guidelines here. So I can turn the track changes back on if that's okay to read. I know it's a little bit easier sometimes to see the version without track changes. So we can just go through these. It's not that long. It deals first with architectural style, and I'll just go through it. Sorry, go ahead, Brian.
Melissa, if you could scroll up to the beginning.
Sure.
I see you're at architectural style. Do we need to go through the purpose, or is that?
I think that this is more of the text that we can look at later. What we would like to get through tonight are the changes to basically the guidelines here. The text itself is something that will go into the document, but these are the actual guidelines that the commission reviews when they see projects. So this was intended to be the focus for tonight.
Very well.
And I can just, again, read these. Sorry, letting more people in. I think Harriet Young is joining us now, Brian.
Okay. What if we continue with this? We'll come back to Harriet at the break. Is that okay?
Okay, sounds good. And I can read these. So there are different categories. This first category is about architectural style. And again, when a project comes in, such as a new commercial project, the design would be evaluated based on these guidelines here. So the first one, architectural style, should be consistent with a mountain town rustic frontier character. Modernistic, urban-oriented, or whimsical designs or buildings that show a basic lack of design or appear to be modular and mass-produced with no relationship to the established character of the planning area should not be approved.
Comments from the committee?
Yeah, I'll just cite a good example of that, and that would be the dollar store down 89. Compare that to the dollar store out in Ash Fork, and you'll see what I mean.
Exactly.
Okay.
Okay, number 2.
Go ahead.
The scale and mass of buildings should be in balance with natural features of the landscape and not dominate the natural setting.
Should and shall.
Okay. Number 3, if you're on the committee and have a comment, please speak up. Number 3.
Architectural features which serve to reduce the apparent mass of a building may be employed, such as telescoping gable ends, variations in roof forms, the use of dormers and clear stories, and setbacks. A lot of these are just modifications to the existing design review overlay standards, which, as Brian, or rather John mentioned, the Dollar General, the Silver Saddle Store, Timberline Firearms, those were all designed based on your existing design review guidelines. So these are just some updates to those.
Okay.
Okay, so number 4 under architectural, we're still under architectural style, is existing vegetation and landforms should be incorporated into the architectural design strategies.
And I assume there that strategies is referring to that which preceded number 1, 2, and 3.
Are you there, honey? Are you leaving? I don't blame you.
Whomever is speaking.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I had you on mute. I apologize. My wife was listening and she was bored, so I told her she could go. I apologize.
Please mute, please.
I did. Yes, sir. Thank you, Brian, or John.
No, this is Brian.
Okay, Brian. Thank you, sir. Sorry.
You're not muted yet.
Okay, so number 5 then, did you have questions on, anyone have questions on 4?
Let's go on to number 5.
Okay, projects comprised of multiple buildings should employ creative site planning techniques such as offset or staggered building footprints to avoid a barracks-like symmetrical appearance.
Hearing no comments, let's go to number 6.
Okay, large scale warehouse type buildings typically associated with big box commercial development and large grocery and retail businesses should be prohibited.
Yeah, I do have one comment on that. I don't know, I should have brought this up when we worked on this, but should be prohibited. I don't know. Is that perhaps exclusionary or discriminatory? Are not desirable, yes, but should be prohibited. I'd have a hard time at the Planning and Zoning Commission looking at that as a policy if something like that did come up.
should be discouraged?
Hey,
work better for you?
Yeah, any kind of wording like that, I think would work very well rather than just the absolute that you have with the word prohibited.
I agree.
And perhaps we could even add why, and the fact being that it's inconsistent with the character of our community.
Exactly, or inconsistent with the previous statements of characters. Keep it short and simple, like Rob says.
How does that read?
There you go.
Excellent.
That's good.
Okay. Should I read it again, Brian?
Do we have any committee members who cannot see the typing, the presentation? If we don't have committee members, I don't see that we have to reread every edit.
If there are community members, though, who can't see, we may need to
Oh,
read out loud.
You are correct. You are correct. I will. Go ahead and please reread.
Okay. Large-scale warehouse type buildings typically associated with big box commercial development and large grocery and retail businesses should be discouraged because this style is inconsistent with the character of the community.
I think you need a period following community.
It's there.
Oh, excuse me.
It's hidden. I mean, it's
Wordsmithers.
That's a good edit.
Teacher in you.
Yep, reads well.
okay. Should we move on then?
Yes, please.
Pardon me, and my cursor's getting tangled. Materials and colors. Building materials and colors that blend with and are complementary to the natural environment should be used.
I think that's good.
Okay, number 2, natural materials such as wood logs and native rock are recommended for integrating structures into the forest setting. High quality, natural appearing synthetic materials or manufactured materials such as synthetic rocks, split face block, log siding, concrete tile shingles, and other materials are acceptable alternatives if it can be demonstrated that the proposed application would result in an appearance consistent with these guidelines.
One quick comment. Think about this for a minute. A comma after wood, logs, it is understood, are typically wood, or even the synthetic materials that appear as logs. But when you talk about wood, that would include things like board and batten. Take a look at Silver Saddle. Just a comment.
Folks, I unmuted myself, and I'm just going to ask a question here. Is there a reason why you don't allow public comment into the red line correction versions of these conversations?
Mr. Leroy, we have a policy and we have followed it consistently that we try to get through our work, get it accomplished, allow for public comment at the beginning and the end. So if you have a concern, please document it. We'll come back to you at the end of our work session. Thank you. John, I see your point.
I just put a comma after wood like that.
Yeah, because it separates the two as, you know,
right.
Wood fascia versus wood logs. Not that I've seen anything other than wooden logs.
Well, they do exist, but
let's go on.
Anyway, that's not up for debate.
Should I go on, right, Brian?
Yes, let's go on, please.
Number 3, heavily textured materials or design elements that create shadow patterns and provide visually interesting shadow patterns and textures consistent with rustic design principles are encouraged. Such materials include lap siding, board and batten, rough sawn wood siding, and native rock.
Sounds good to me. Committee members, any comments?
Should I move on, Brian?
Yes, please.
Number 4, architectural color scheme should be consistent with the earth tone and forest palette of the natural landscapes. Muted earth tones should be used as a primary color scheme. Accent colors that complement the primary earth tones may be utilized for doors, windows, and trim. The use of predominantly glossy, reflective, or bright colors that conflict with the surrounding environment should not be approved.
My only comment is you have 2 periods following the 3rd sentence, trim. Other than that, I find it to be acceptable. Any comments from the committee? Let's move on, please.
Number 5, earth-toned roofing materials and colors that blend with the natural environment should be used. Bright and highly reflective roofing materials should not be permitted.
Committee comments?
Yeah, what's the difference, the real big difference between 4 and 5?
Specific roofing is what
Yeah.
5 is addressing.
5 is roof.
Oh, okay, sorry.
I wonder though, galvanized steel roofs are consistent with the character of our community, although they don't necessarily stay that bright, shiny galvanized for terribly long.
Well,
are we trying to exclude those?
No, Rob, I think you are correct in your assessment of how a galvanized roof of any form will age and become a flat gray. So I'm not trying to exclude those at all, I don't think.
Okay.
Because they start off bright and highly reflective.
Right. Same thing would apply to copper roofing, which I considered when we built the house here. And, you know, very bright when it's brand new, and it ages to that nice green patina that you see. But it takes a while, just like galvanized materials do. So I think the long-term big picture is, no, we're not, you don't want to exclude stuff like that. Hey.
Works for me.
Boy, there you go.
Yeah.
Excellent.
I have a quick, just a quick comment, and it's not really that specific, but just a request that I know as we're going through this, I'm trying to be mindful in some ways, especially when we're talking about what kind of structures a person could live in, of the like socioeconomic ramifications of being too restrictive. Whereas if somebody needs to build and can't necessarily afford to do some things that we might feel more fit into our design standards, you know, I just as we go, could just asking the committee to be mindful of that. Not that we aren't already, but it's something that has sort of come up for me as we've been moving through this.
I've got to say that we thought about that a great deal.
Yeah, I know we did. I'm just, as we're going back through this, I'm seeing some things that I maybe didn't see prior. So there's nothing wrong with ever, as we go, because clearly we're taking a second look and some people are making some comments to change things. So my request is only that as we go through this process, that I'm just suggesting, not that you're not, that we all just be mindful of that perhaps.
Good job.
And
Thank you, Sailor.
Yeah, with respect to that, I think that our policy statement here is pretty liberal compared to what you will get in other places. Think about a Scottsdale or.
Well, you know what, I'm certainly not arguing that, but I'm not trying to be like any other, you know, I'm hoping we're not trying to be like another community. We're not like thinking about that. I mean, it's not a base. We're not trying to, you know, base what we choose to do on what other people are choosing to do, but what we want to do. So, you know, I don't want to look at this and go, oh, it's enough because it's not as bad as, you see what I'm saying? So just look at it as a unique and individual thing outside of what we might experience elsewhere.
And that is precisely the reason why it has the latitude that it does in the written policy.
Yeah, I hear that you feel that, you know, that that it is good the way it is, and that's okay. I mean, I'm not arguing in the least. All I was asking was that people might, it was just something that spoke to me, and so I felt moved to share, and that's it.
Well,
thank you.
Good.
Can we
I
move on?
want to see it added and hear it when you do have something you think needs to be changed with this. That's the way it's got to work.
Okay, thank you. Any other committee members have comments?
And Brian, this is Melissa, just to kind of reiterate, this is the time to make edits or changes, or if the committee members have any other ideas that need to go in there, even if we need to wordsmith later, let's get them in here now. So yeah, I mean, this is a creative process, so it doesn't have to be perfect, but we can get these ideas incorporated now, and then if we have to smooth it out before the public, before the open house, we can do that. Or if we need to review it again, then of course we will. So yeah, just put your ideas in here.
Are there any other sections in this, Melissa? Or is this the?
No, we have a little bit more to go through.
Okay.
Or wait, there we go. There just has to be, it seems to be a page break. So.
I have a quick question, if it's okay. I like what Sailor brought up, and I wonder if, and not perhaps in this particular section, but capturing the essence of what she said somewhere in this document wouldn't be a good idea. That we recognize the diversity of the community and want to make sure it's sustainable for everyone, regardless of economic conditions.
Would that go under community character, Rob?
It sounds like a good place to put it. I just like her comment or her thought so much that I think it should be reflected in here somewhere.
Good point.
Good point.
Melissa,
yeah, I'm thinking this is
have to
probably
decide where.
A good place to add it, as well as other places. We can make it an overall theme in the plan. So Sailor, would you mind sending an email to me? And we can just then,
yeah, sure,
just with some language, that'd be great, and then we can wrap it in here.
Absolutely, I can totally
Thank
do
you.
that. Yeah.
That'd be awesome, and that
Thanks.
way we can, give you time to think about it and get the thoughts
okay,
organized. Perfect. Thanks, you guys, for that discussion. All right, Brian, should I move on to the next?
Yes,
section?
please
Okay.
move on. You want to change your page break?
No, I'll have to get that later. We'll fix all the formatting later. So number 6, we're still in colors and materials. Fencing materials should be of a muted earth tone color that blends in with surrounding natural landscape. The use of bright reflective fencing should not be permitted. Where practical, the use of wood and native stone for fencing materials is encouraged. Now, does this still ring true?
One comment about the bright reflective fencing. Some of the fencing that I've looked at lately is Corten steel,
right, I've seen that too.
And it changes as it rusts very lightly to a color that is a reddish brown, of course, rust color. So a statement like we had about roofing may also be appropriate here.
So John, you picked up exactly where I was going, is should be discouraged or should be
well,
materials should blend with the environment.
Yeah, the statement that Melissa wrote up about materials that age to a matte patina covers that base, I think.
Okay,
rust is a pretty matte color and can be considered, if you are an artist, as a patina also.
Oh, we'll have to wordsmith this, but just add that type of language in here.
That's what you need, and that should cover the base.
Unless the material ages to a matte patina. Oh, excuse me.
Material will age to a matte.
Thank
patina.
you.
Material, yeah.
There you go.
Take the S off. There you go.
Yep.
All right. Moving on, Brian.
I'm a little, Melissa, I'm a little concerned about saying native stone. I mean, I know folks make fences and so forth out of basalt and so forth, which is not in peril of running out. But if folks are going out and harvesting, yeah, I might just be hung up on it. But I've seen places where, how shall I say this, where stone has been used overly to an over extent that there's little stone left in the regional area.
Again, I think that would limit it because you have such a wide variety of stone available within Coconino County. Take a look at some areas out there around Ash Fork with all the sandstone.
Yeah.
Do we want to delete native?
Yeah, that would probably be the way to do it.
Yeah, I would be more comfortable with it just staying stone instead of native stone. Other comments? Thank you, Melissa. Let's move on to number 7.
Okay, utility poles, towers, and storage tanks within the planning area should have a permanent, non-reflective, muted surface in colors that blend with the dominant elements of the surrounding natural environment.
I like the statement. Is that something that we have some influence on APS or the water companies or other utilities?
Sure, when they come in for a use permit, then their color is often, or a use permit or even a development expansion will review these as long as they're under our jurisdiction.
Brian, I'm one of the people who has hammered on people at the Planning and Zoning Commission level about this sort of thing over the years.
Okay. Good. Other committee member comments? Let's move on to site design, please.
Okay, number 1, development covered by these guidelines should be designed to fit the natural existing landforms as much as possible, without resorting to radical grading, terracing, filling, or alterations of the existing terrain. Where cuts and fills are required, they should be landscaped or otherwise treated to blend with adjacent natural terrain to the greatest extent possible. Where retaining walls are used, materials, texture, and colors should blend with the surrounding natural environment.
Committee member comments? Let's go to number 2.
The invasion and spread of noxious weeds into newly disturbed and existing landscapes should be mitigated by a weed management plan. And again, this applies to projects that the Planning Commission is reviewing for design review. So mainly commercial and industrial scale projects.
Committee member comments?
Yeah, I just want to mention to people that would cover subdivisions as well.
Right. Thank you, John. New subdivisions, yeah. Moving on.
Yes,
Brian?
please.
Preservation of existing trees and native vegetation is required to the greatest extent possible, and site plans should indicate all existing trees, shrubs, and vegetated areas that will be retained or removed. This is somewhat redundant to the zoning ordinance, but it's a good policy to still leave in the document.
Are we being consistent where we say on one hand something is required and then we say should?
I was just looking at that too.
Should be encouraged.
Yeah, I like encouraged.
Well, I'll make one comment on that. Maybe you guys are right. I think we've had situations like this come to the Planning and Zoning Commission, and should or encourage, whichever is the stronger, I think, in your opinion, is what we want in here. Because we have conditions, site plans sometimes where everybody, they want to take all the trees out. That doesn't fly very well. So
how can,
the stronger the wording, the better.
How can we require someone on their private property to keep all their grama grass?
Well, this is again mainly for projects that need DRO review by Planning Commission.
Right, that commercial property, you can even do this with a subdivision plan, should it be regarded as necessary. That'd probably get some debate, but nevertheless, that's how you do it.
Okay.
This is not residential property.
But Brian, you bring up a great property rights issue.
Yeah.
And if it's not okay to do it in a residential because we shouldn't be telling people what to do with their private property, why is it okay to do it anywhere?
That's a great point, Rob. We were thinking on the same line. I like what Melissa has here. Existing trees and native vegetation should be preserved. It gives guidance, but it doesn't have, it's not a requirement, and we're not infringing on someone's property rights.
Right.
I'd have to say that this is something that we have for a long time been requiring with a lot of development that is commercial. It is something that gets addressed, and Melissa, you correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that things like this get addressed in a pre-app meeting, and it is not necessarily intended to say you've got to keep that big ponderosa there because it will not allow you to develop your parking lot the way you want to. All these things are negotiable.
Whomever is speaking.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I had my mute. I'm sorry. I apologize.
Thank you, Mr. Leroy. Okay, John, did you have anything else to say?
No, just
okay.
Other than I appreciate the property rights issues that Rob has brought up. And, you know, typically these things get negotiated in an attempt to be as fair to all parties as possible.
And remember, sorry, go ahead, Evelyn.
Oh, this is Evelyn. Just after vegetation, you need to remove is.
Thank you. And just to put this into a little bit more perspective, then the zoning ordinance does address the design review overlay. So when a commercial project comes in that is a permitted use, but it does not need any other kind of, for instance, conditional use permit, then the zoning ordinance, if an area plan has a design review overlay, which is what this is, then that has to go in front of the Planning Commission for review and approval. So that is where these will actually be looked at in detail that way.
Okay.
Okay, so that is a zoning ordinance driven review. Okay, and zoning ordinance does have the effect of basically law that way.
Does any other committee, go ahead, Melissa.
No, go ahead.
Does any other committee member have a comment on number 3?
I'm kind of wondering if at the very end where it says in vegetation areas that will be retained or can be removed, does that really matter?
So what this is saying is that the site plan should show essentially what will be graded, what will not be graded or disturbed. We could use the word disturbed here instead.
It's goody as built is what the site plan is supposed to show. So an optional can in there probably doesn't make sense because the intent of the site plan is to show you what it's going to end up being.
Okay.
And the can almost says to some people, then that's what I'm going to do rather than what I can do. So
I think this well, I would ask the planning commissioners if this seems clear.
Well, to me, I think with the suggested change, retained or removed, I think that's okay. That gives us enough guidance. And that's essentially what we've been doing with site plans for commercial development.
Thank you, John.
That,
Jim,
that's clear. That's clear to me. We go through this on the design review, and they do this, and so it's very clear the way it is stated.
thank you, Jim.
Brian, should I move on to 4?
Yes, please.
And I would say I did see that Liz just joined us.
Okay, we'll get to them at when we break.
Okay, thank you. Number 4, detailed landscape plans should be required for Planning and Zoning Commission review for all DRO applications. Landscaping should emphasize xeriscape techniques using indigenous plant species and similar species adapted to the local environment. This is actually where we could use a shall, because this is true. Those landscape plans do need to go to Planning Commission for review.
I had one thought on this, only because I ran into this with my project. What is a detailed landscape plan, and how is that defined? It was defined to me in a variety of different ways that ranged from I have to have a certified professional landscape designer do CAD drawings and things like that, to, well, if you can just kind of draw your lot layout and tell us where you're going to plant trees, that'd be okay. So I'm not sure that we're helping with this by leaving that phrase the way that it is.
Okay, that's a good point. I'm actually opening my zoning ordinance right now.
Yeah, and I'll comment on that to Rob, that between the time you went through this and the revision of the zoning ordinance, it's quite a bit different now, because the word I would use is liberalized, and it's a lot more negotiable with community development. I think back to some of the cases we had before that happened, very much like yours, and there wasn't much leeway allowed in the ordinance as far as how to do it. And it's far less onerous than it was in your case now, Rob.
Well, that would be good. There was significant cost associated with getting a professional landscape designer to do something like that, and it isn't real complicated. So
yeah, and we tried to avoid a lot of that with the update of the ordinance.
Okay, I'm good with it then. Maybe detailed could just go away in this case.
Hey, that would be a good way to do it, because that reflects more of what we have in the landscape ordinance section of the code.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and I think we need to make an update here that it complies with the zoning ordinance.
That's a good way to do it. That should work rather well. Give me the kind of guidance I'd need. Because
Melissa, did you say it should be shall?
Yeah, we can change that. So, sorry.
What about are required? Is that more active? Is that more?
I think that works well, Brian.
Yeah, how about just required to include? Or are required to include?
Yeah, and I think that. And we can wordsmith this.
Okay.
Okay, should we move on then?
Yes, let's move on.
Okay, and then landscaping plans should include a mix of landscape or hardscape materials such as crushed rock and boulders, and a variety of plant types and sizes. Hardscape materials should blend with a natural landscape.
Fine with me. Comments from the committee?
Yeah, okay. The way the code reads now, it could be entirely xeriscape. There are areas, the one I can think of up in Tuba City that is private property, where we did whatever we could to eliminate all requirements for vegetation. it was sand and rock, and they didn't have any way to irrigate anything there. So
And that's why we took that last portion out here.
right. And if the wording looks good to include that to everyone else, I'll go with that.
Let me interject real quick. Someone is ruffling materials. If you'd please mute yourself. Thank you. John, apologies for interrupting. Melissa, any other, do you have other comments that you want to follow on the landscaping number 5?
No, I think this is complete as you're looking at it. And then we can scroll. If you want to move on, then number 6, there were some strikeouts as far as these other sections that were struck are dealt with in the zoning ordinance. So we did not need to repeat that here.
Do you need to refer to the zoning ordinance? And that's a question.
We can refer to that in the text. That would not be referred to in the policies.
Okay.
I did refer to it up here, but I think this is something we will look at in terms of writing that in the text and making it clear that the zoning ordinance does apply to these projects. So number 6 is adequate visual buffering should be provided between a development covered by these guidelines and adjacent residentially zoned land. Buffering may consist of landscape berms, fencing, trees, or other acceptable mitigating methods.
Any committee comments?
At risk of putting myself on report here, we're talking about visual buffering. There are potentially other impacts from an adjacent property. And I wonder if those shouldn't also be addressed. Any thoughts?
Yeah, just one thing. I think some of that, exactly what you're talking about, it is covered in the zoning code for approving rezonings, commercial properties with CUPs, that sort of thing.
Okay.
We've had a lot of discussion in the past over that before the ordinance changed with the last update.
What other impacts are you referring to, Rob?
Well, noise would be one.
Okay.
So if a commercial development was to go in next to a residential and it was going to be operating 24/7 creating noise, that too you would want to have buffered.
That's a very good point, Rob. I was also thinking of dust, and we have addressed dust in a number of different places.
And the noise issue is, of course, something you're very familiar with, Rob.
I am.
Thanks to some people I know up here also. But anyway, one of the things that we do not have a noise ordinance in the county. That's a little contentious right now, but Planning and Zoning Commission, as well as the Board of Supervisors, have with use permits imposed noise standards, very much like what you got hit with, which, by the way, was totally unnecessary. So it's in there, and the way it gets in there is public safety and welfare under that very ambiguous phrasing that goes back to 1926 with Euclid v. Ambler that said zoning was constitutional.
Okay, so it sounds like I'm being told that is adequately covered elsewhere.
Just my personal comment. I don't think it is adequately, but it nevertheless does get covered when staff and then the P&Z Commission reviews these things. It gets a lot of thought these days.
It could be a policy that gets added though to this.
As a policy, yeah.
As a policy to the DRO, I think that
Good suggestion.
there's not a noise policy in this DRO. So instead of developing that now, we can add that at the bottom and come back and add the language Doney.
Well, that's a good suggestion because it would provide the kind of guidance that you'd need at the P&Z and board level for this. It says, yeah, it's in the area plan. Let's adhere to this.
Good catch there, Rob.
Very good. Thank you.
Okay.
Any other committee comments on, what was it, number 6?
Uh-huh.
This is
Hearing none, let's move on.
I have a comment.
Bernice.
Yes, Russian olives are an invasive plant.
Right.
And I know other counties have banned them. They can escape the areas that they are planted in and start cultivating themselves where people don't necessarily want them. They are highly allergenic. And in our altitude, we have less air. And when people have allergies and asthma, it's really difficult when you live around Russian olives when they're blooming. And I was wondering if we could address somehow, not just Russian olives, but other invasive trees like.
I'm looking back at this policy that's number 2 under site design, Bernice.
Uh-huh.
Would it be appropriate in this?
Noxious weeds and plants or.
Yeah.
Tree.
You could add the words non-native and invasive, which is Russian olive and Siberian elm are just outstanding examples of that.
Plus they have thorns.
Yeah, I like adding the other obnoxious weeds and other plants. That would include trees too, so.
Well, how about weeds, shrubs, and trees?
Yeah, they're going over a thing. I was late. I don't even know going over.
Liz, would you please?
Sorry, I thought I was muted. Sorry, I thought I was. I thought I was off the screen there, Gunga Din.
Okay, Melissa, that looks pretty good.
Bernice, does that address your thought?
Yes, but could that still allow somebody to plant a row of Russian olives as a buffer, as a visual buffer along their property that could still, I mean, birds pick up olives and, you know.
Well, not for these projects. Remember, this is specific to those that need design review by the Planning Commission. So any landscape plan that comes in, our landscape ordinance does require that the plants be selected from a certain list, and it does not include Russian olive.
Okay, great. Thank you.
So yeah, just remember, I mean, this is not going to apply to a neighbor who wants to do that. That would, you know, we've got policies in the natural environment section that discourage that. Right now, the county does not have a prohibited plant list where that could actually apply. But, you know, this is something that does apply to projects that need this review. So, yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, so back down here. I
think we're on number. We were on 6. I think we're done with 6.
We're done with. We were on 7. We had moved to 7.
Yep.
All areas within the site plan that will remain undeveloped should be maintained in a natural condition or landscaped in a manner that complements the natural environment of the area and should result in visually appealing vegetation that softens the effects of the commercial development. If possible, the commercial development should be visually subordinate to the natural landscape condition of the surrounding area.
First of all, I think you can take out in the first half of the first sentence of the area. That is, I mean, that's redundant.
This is a pretty wordy.
I would put a period right where your marker is now and split that into And should result in visually appealing vegetation and stuff.
Let me do this. This whole part could come out.
I think it can also.
Anybody
I like
else?
the way it is. I like the way it is now. Other comments from committee members?
You got a good suggestion there, Brian.
Thank you. Let's move on to number 8.
Okay, clearly delineated pedestrian pathways should be incorporated into the site design where appropriate.
Committee member comments?
In this is Liz. On this, the pathways, because we've been getting so many comments and about paths and trails, is this pathway, I'm just asking because people are asking me, is it concrete? Is it dirt? Is it part of the road? What are we talking pathways? Does it mean trail?
This is within the commercial development itself.
So it would be cement.
It could be, depending on what the development is, it doesn't have to be cement, it could be gravel, but this is
Okay.
within the commercial development, the walkways.
Okay. So it's just open for whatever they decide.
Right. We're not dictating here what that material needs to be.
Okay.
Other committee member comments?
Yeah, Brian, just one comment on trails, and in a commercial, in an open area, or even in a residential area, if it's mandated that it meets ADA regulations, the way that the money is appropriated, you're going to see a paved or cement trail because it's an ADA compliance. So keep that in the back of your mind when you say you do not want to see a lot of the trails covered. You have to look at the ADA recommendations because that money a lot of times is appropriated for the handicap to be able to get out. So keep that in the back of your mind when you're thinking of trails and paths and stuff like that.
Thank you, Jim, because I'm running into some comments from people and like the Futz Trail that's going to connect us to the Futz that goes up to Sandy Seat. People don't want that paved, but it's a Futz Trail. It's got to be wheelchair. And I'm just looking, I've just never thought about pathways as I have now, I guess because I'm on the transportation and trails, plus people are coming to me and then we get those emails of how this is. So you're saying if it's in this commercial, it's going to be cement. Yes.
Not necessarily, but you just have to look at the ADA regulations. If they do an ADA regulation, that is what the trail is going to be composed of.
Right, and if it's a commercial development, then they'll be looking, the building code will a lot of times lay out what the requirements are for entry and exit into the buildings.
Thank you, Melissa. I was just going to mention that building code is what dictates how that is done.
Yeah, so.
Let me take a minute here. I'm on a subcommittee of, excuse me, that's looking into the redesign of the library, the main library entrance. And the whole thing is driven by ADA. So what they have come up with is zigzag paths and all that kind of stuff to make the thing workable. Right now, the ADA ramp is not sloped low enough to meet the standard. And so the whole thing is getting totally redesigned on that. So ADA does drive an awful lot of stuff here.
Let me ask committee members, and particularly Jim and John, does the ADA need to be stated in the policy number 8? That's a question.
No.
No, I don't think so because it's a part of the building code.
Okay, I think that clears up some questions.
That's covered under federal mandates.
Okay, thank you, Jim. Let's move on to number 9.
Okay, towers and poles used for communication devices or other uses should not be sited in locations where they block or detract from the views of the San Francisco peaks or other key natural features of the area.
When you say communication towers, does this committee have any power to say if they are going to put up poles and towers? They're not always good, but they're better than those ugly towers. To have those tree limbs on them so they don't look so metally. Is that responsible at the people who put them up? Because I've tried to get that done near the fire station on Coachfield, and I keep on getting different answers.
So I think you're referring to the wireless telecommunication facilities, and those are required to obtain approval for a conditional use permit from the Planning and Zoning Commission. And that's a whole nother section of requirements in our zoning ordinance for those. And the stealth, quote unquote, design is one of the preferred design standards for those.
The stealth?
It's called stealth. That's what you're talking about, where they're sort of camouflaged, semi-camouflaged, you know, with the fake tree look.
Yeah, and who does that?
The developer does.
Okay.
Yeah.
But if they don't do it, how does the public say they want it?
Well, that is a public process. That the conditional use permit is a public process.
Come to the Planning and Zoning Commission and state your opinions on it.
Thank you. Okay.
And I happen to be a big proponent of that sort of thing, especially things that are of a height that is beyond that we have for these stealth towers. In the past, all kinds of things have been done that make them stand out far more than they should, like visual contrast. So it gets a lot of consideration at the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, moving on.
Yes.
All right. So now we're into the sign section. And this was updated. All provisions of section 4.2, 4.3 of the Coconino County zoning ordinance pertaining to signs and lighting should be applicable except as modified herein. And I just, somebody is not on mute and we're getting some feedback. If everybody would make sure you're on mute, that would be great. Thank you.
We do leftovers. Is it fun?
Anything, Brian?
Somebody's still not on mute. If you haven't muted yourself, please do so. I hear no comments on part 1 of signs. Let's move on.
Signs should be subject to the same requirements of design, materials, and colors as specified elsewhere in the DRO.
Seems pretty common sense to me, and I think it's well written. Comments?
Yeah, I'm wondering what if the other colors don't make for good visibility of being able to read a sign?
Colors are further addressed in number 5.
So if you use all the muted colors on signs, I don't know if it's going to be readable or not.
Well, the good news, Dave, is these aren't public safety signs. These are, advertising your business.
Okay.
Yes. So Rob may have to go out and, make his signs less standing out.
Hey, my signs are completely to code.
Good. Melissa, I'm wondering if it would make sense where it says signs, if we were to say commercial signs as opposed to just signs, because when I first read it, I went, well, wait a minute, I want to see the street signs.
And it would apply to public. Okay, and then just to further clarify what a developer or property owner would need to do then is apply for a sign permit. So we would also be reviewing the size, the height, the lighting of a sign based on the requirements of the zoning code. But these are in addition to that.
That's a good clarification.
And just for background, it also addresses when the sign can be lighted and how much light it can produce and what hours it can do it.
Right.
Yeah, that is an element of the code also.
The lighting, and there's this next section that we'll talk about is lighting. Brian, should we just ask people to read these 5?
I think so.
Standards? Okay.
You have people on the phone who cannot read them.
Oh, okay. I'll read them then.
That's right.
All right. So I think we were on number 2. Should we move on then?
Yes. Do you want me to read them, Melissa?
I can read them unless you would like to. It's up to you.
You have a much better voice than I do.
I don't know about that, but I'm glad to read. So number 3, signs should not be attached to or painted on natural objects, such as trees or rocks existing on site.
There is a company here that actually creates signs out of rocks, but not the ones that are existing on
site.
Mm-hmm. I have a comment on that. What about signs that are made out of trees that have fallen down by the bear man? You know, he can make a sign out of a tree. I'm thinking about that tree that's in front of Wizards on Highway 89 that got, that tree was destroyed, but it's still got the capability of making something out of it.
Just one comment on that, and that is that that doesn't necessarily constitute a sign. In a lot of minds, that also constitutes art.
Mm-hmm.
If the bear isn't holding up a sign that says Wizards, well, it can be art.
Great. Okay.
Same kind of thing we looked at with Bill's welding with all of the farm equipment that used to be there.
Okay, thank you.
I added the word living trees.
Oh, okay.
With
There
that,
you go.
I think that's probably a good point, Bernice.
Yep, that'll do it.
But even standing dead trees still have a lot of value. Do we want signs on them?
Well, a standing dead tree on a commercial site could be a hazard. So I would think
You
the
mean
property.
Are you saying like a snag for raptors or owls or because that
Well, I wasn't thinking of it in that sense, but what I'm saying is that, you know, I still don't like signs that are on a dead tree, whether owls are there or not. So, you know, should we have a sign that says, you know, Jay's the wrong word, but at any rate, somebody's tire shop and it's nailed to a dead tree.
Brian raises a good point. I think it would be inappropriate to keep living trees in there with respect to that.
I think the only kind of sign that should be on a dead tree should say beware, and that should be limit it to that. It's my 2 cents.
Yeah, well,
it does
Taylor's
seem
got it right.
that any dead trees are probably a hazard to a commercial project and would probably be removed, because if it's going to fall on somebody's car, that would not be a good.
Okay, so let me understand this. So I like the bear man stuff. So you're saying there's not a sign on there, but you could still carve the tree, because I don't want to put no dead trees on property, because like
Right, this isn't getting into that kind of detail.
Okay, good.
This is a sign that's required by a sign permit and a sign that is intended to advertise the business.
Okay.
Can you put such as any trees?
I would suggest we move on here. I think that
you know, we could go on and on for hours. But,
yeah, I think we should move on.
Let's move on, please.
All right, so number 4, signs that are constructed of natural materials are preferred and may be lighted with fully shielded downward directed external features. I'm going to turn off the track changes. Signs with highly reflective surfaces or bright metal should not be permitted. And this should be lighted because they actually will be based on our sign ordinance.
What about internally lighted signs?
Well, I think that they can be externally lighted as long as they're fully shielded and downward directed. Our sign code permits that.
No, I'm talking about internally lit signs.
Yeah, that's addressed in the
It's
code
in the,
for signage in the code.
Okay.
Pretty specific about signs, like the one you've got, Rob.
Yeah, okay.
Other committee member comments on number 4?
I have a quick question. I haven't really noticed because I don't go driving around at night much, but like the new Aspen Vet new sign that they put out, does that have a light on it? I guess what I'm trying to get to is, are all signs lit?
not all signs are lit, and I'm not familiar with that one and whether or not it does have a light on it.
So maybe our preferred and if lit or something like that should be shielded, and if lighted should be shielded.
Let's just take a, can we jump to the next section very quickly, because the next section is about lighting.
All right.
And I'm just wanting to scan. It doesn't address signs in particular. Okay.
But wouldn't the lights on the signs be subject to the DRO and the dark skies ordinance?
Yes.
When we give them a permission for the DRO?
That's right, Jim.
Yeah.
Rather than
This may need to come out, this section.
Yeah.
Yeah, just reference the higher level document that requires it.
Yeah. And that most of that is covered in the updated ordinance. These LED signboards are also one of the things we do with those is to count those in the overall lumen count allowed for a commercial business or development. Pretty important because those things put out a lot of light if you don't tune them correctly.
So if you take that out, this is Liz, if you take the thing about being shielded, then you could have a spotlight on your sign. And you're right, Aspen does have a sign. I don't know, but someone in the neighborhood around here has American flags and they beam this big, which I love the American flag, but this big spotlight on the American flag that goes up. And so
yeah, that type of light is not permitted, but
right.
So yeah.
So on here, no one thinks that we should have something on that because an outside light could be reflected out. I mean,
so we've got a lighting section to look at right here, and that's where that will be discussed.
Oh, but I thought you were talking about signs. We were talking about signs. So if you have a beam on your sign, like, I don't know if Aspen does, but I think that trailer park right next to it has a beam on its sign. I mean,
it may not be in conformance. So, yeah, I just updated this because it did seem to be not well organized. So I just put the lighted signs should be lit with fully shielded, downward directed external.
Oh, I thought you
features.
took that out. Okay.
Well, I just reorganized it.
Okay, beautiful. Yeah, I like it. Yeah.
Brian, what do you think?
I think that's good.
Yeah.
Comments from other committee members?
That works.
Yep.
And if they're replacing or constructing a sign, the lighting is looked at in the permits.
Good.
Good job.
Let's move to number 5.
Okay, so again, we're still on signs. Muted natural colors should be emphasized. The use of predominantly glossy, bright, or unnatural colors that conflict with the surrounding environment should not be approved. Architectural style should be consistent with the architectural style of the building or portion thereof to which it relates. I think this should say sign style.
Yes, it should.
Yes.
Melissa, I like how you had talked earlier about that muted pate or however it was.
Patina.
Patina, that was it.
Patina. Okay. No killing
Glad
of
Liz has muted
animals
herself.
for their liver.
Yeah. Oh, well. I don't know if that fits in here.
Signs sometimes are constructed of copper. It's not often that I've seen that here.
Yeah.
You know, it's obviously pretty expensive to do that. So this is more about this color of signs themselves. I don't know. I mean, if signs are in, are you wanting something added here to address signs that are made out of some sort of metal?
No, I was thinking of, it gets a little wordy. And I was commenting more on that phrasing.
I see.
Is good.
I thought we'd already addressed predominantly glossy bright.
That was in the materials section.
That was material section.
This
and
is
all I'm saying
particular to signs.
Okay.
Although number 2 does say signs should be subject to the same requirements of design, materials, and colors as specified elsewhere. This does seem to be somewhat redundant to that. This portion does.
Strike.
And then it would just read sign style should be consistent with the architectural style of the building.
Yes.
Okay.
Number 6, I hate to be like this, but number 6's font needs to be
I
increased.
know. I'll fix it. We'll fix this all the formatting. Thank you.
Okay. Were there any other comments on number 5 from the committee members? Let's go to number 6.
Number 6, the base of freestanding signs should be located in a maintained planter box or landscaped area, or as otherwise designed to blend in with a natural environment.
So the natural environment in Doney Park is not a planter box.
It's true.
Good point.
I don't know what the intent of this
Let's just
particular
take it out.
item is, because making you plant stuff around
Yeah.
the base of a sign or whatever, that's consuming water, it's maintenance,
It's gone.
well, only if everyone agrees.
Right.
No,
I'm
I
just
think
showing.
it's right.
Yeah, I say ditch it too. Makes zero sense.
Very good suggestion. It should be eliminated, I think.
Let me hear from other committee members, please.
What about the size of the sign? Are we giving them unlimited sign size?
No, the sign size is very specifically laid out in the zoning ordinance.
Sure is.
And it's based on the frontage of the building. It's a ratio to the frontage of the building.
Does that need to be stated in some way here, Melissa?
Well, it does refer up here, right here.
Oh, it does say that. Yes. All that's got it.
And actually this is R. Yeah, the sign code is very detailed, and it's very, if you look at the newer signs in your area, you'll see that they are fairly limited in size, and you know, there are no billboards, there are no really large signs, and that's intentionally, was intentionally written that way in our sign ordinance. Does that answer your question, Bernice?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
And here number 6 does, you know, talk about low profile signs being strongly encouraged. That doesn't hurt to have it in there, but the height of the signs are guided by the zoning ordinance.
Which makes me wonder if this is even necessary here.
think it would be okay to leave it in there again. You know, it is a policy.
Reiterate it or something.
I agree. I think it, yeah, I think it encourages people to not just make it big because they can.
Yeah. Another thing is, they come before the Planning and Zoning Commission. It's awfully easy to say, well, would you consider lowering the height of your sign for this particular business or development? So a little bit of guidance there.
Okay.
What about the banners and those signs that wave in the wind?
They are technically not allowed.
Okay. I see that they were lined out. Temporary banners and other temporary portable signage shall not be permitted.
And they are, yeah, they're not allowed in our zoning ordinance.
Okay. Thank you.
But sometimes those banners have good messages on them.
That's an enforcement issue.
Right, and so it's not going to happen. You can still have your banner and talk about Boy Scout meet, you know, because it's a good.
So let's move on to lighting.
Okay, and that is the last, these are the last few in this section, in this chapter. So development number 1, developments covered by these DRO guidelines will comply with the zoning ordinance section 4.3, comma, astronomical zone 2 lighting standards except as modified herein. A detailed lighting plan should be submitted for Planning and Zoning Commission review and approval to ensure compliance with these guidelines and applicable Coconino County ordinances. A bit about Zone 2. There's, I believe, and John, you can correct me if I'm wrong, I believe there's a small portion of Doney Park that is in Zone 3. So what this standard does, it applies Zone 2, which is more restrictive in terms of lumen output across the entire planning area.
Actually, Melissa, it is most of Doney Park
is Zone 3.
Zone 3.
Okay, thank you.
And the other thing is, I don't think the word astronomical belongs in there.
I think that's outdated.
It is simply referred to in the code as Zone 2.
Yeah.
The lighting ordinance.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. And the rest of it, yeah, I'll go along with that. I won't give you any of the stuff that I have made sure got added in terms of lighting for subdivisions and use permits lately. So that'll be changed.
John, a very quick question. Should lighting standards be changed to lighting ordinances?
I think standards is a better word for it in this case.
Okay.
Because the ordinance actually refers to it, I believe, as standards or will with the update.
Thank you.
Is it, John, is it zoning ordinance or is it lighting ordinance?
Well, it's the lighting ordinance is section 4.3 of the zoning code or zoning ordinance.
Okay, so we're going to leave it as zoning ordinance section 4.3.
Yeah, either way, it reads just fine, says the same thing.
Okay. All right.
Actually, we could refer to, well, it does say Zone 2 lighting standards.
And the addition about what the Planning and Zoning Commission chooses to do is appropriate in this case because we don't have the new standards in effect, and don't know when that's going to happen, but it will eventually. So we have been putting requirements in with developments that are much more strict than what is in the code right now. And so far, everyone has gone along with it.
Okay. Brian, are we okay on number 1?
I believe we are, unless there is another committee member comment. Let's move on.
Okay, number 2, all light poles and fixtures should be compatible with the architectural style of the development, consistent with these guidelines. I think that should be as consistent.
Other committee member comments?
Okay, number 3, light poles should be in scale with the surrounding landscape and size of the development. Light poles should not exceed 25 feet in height.
Is that a standard height or a standard limitation on light poles?
No, it is not.
So how did we, let me ask this, is that enforceable first?
Well, where it is enforceable would be during the formation of a conditional use permit.
Right.
Rezoning, as in conditional zoning. That's about it right now.
So if I were to put up one on my barn, I could take it up to 28 or whatever feet.
Well, your barn's on private property.
Oh, that's right. Never mind. Never mind.
And as long as it meets the lighting code in all other respects, you're good to go.
Yeah. Okay.
Are we good to move on, Brian?
Yes.
Okay, 2 more. Number 4, all light fixtures, regardless of lumen output, should be fully shielded and downward directed so that direct illumination is contained on site. This is basically the essence of our lighting ordinance.
Do we want to cross-reference that comment with that policy, with the lighting policy that we have, the dark skies policies?
It is up here in number 1.
Right.
Okay.
Right there.
Never mind.
Good point. Good point. And the same with number 5.
Yeah.
And John, I did have just our lighting compliance specialist, Mark Stento, did recommend that we take this last part of the sentence out and just leave that.
Yeah, I
to the
fully
shorter.
agree.
Yeah.
I fully agree with him because this reflects what we have done with a couple of cases that have come before the Planning Commission. Use narrow spectrum amber to the greatest extent possible.
Mm-hmm.
And just for everyone else, what that means is that there are cases wherein that is not commercially available for some applications. So it gives you some leeway in how to do it when you get a lighting permit.
Okay, Brian, that's it for the design review overlay standard section.
Okay. We have a couple of people who have joined us. I'd like to recognize first Supervisor Geronimo Vasquez from District 2. Supervisor Vasquez, would you like to share anything with us?
Yes, hi everyone. I apologize for coming in late today. I was in another meeting and so I've been trying to get oriented. But I just wanted to say keep up the good work. I really appreciate all the hard work you're putting in there, and you know I'm looking forward to seeing the fruits of the final labor that you've put in. I have been shaking the tree a little bit, seeing what are the possibilities of a recreational space out on those 80 acres that we talked about last time. So I have continued following up there, and I'm looking to do the area plan self-tour soon. So Harriet, I'll be contacting you soon. I appreciate that. Rob, since you're there, I wanted to let you know I did finally get your email. I apologize for not responding yet. I'm waiting to get the information back, but it is on my mind. I saw you there, so I wanted to address it. So thank you for your patience. And so, yeah, I just wanted to say thank you, and I appreciate all your hard work, and I am here and I am listening, and I'm absorbing. It's still very new to me. So it's more of learning the process and learning the different details about the area plan, but it is definitely illuminating the process for me. And I have a greater appreciation every time we do the land use hearings and look at area plans. And now I know what it took to create those area plans. So thank you for your time, because it's not been easy. I mean, I barely jumped in the last month or so. This is maybe my 3rd meeting, and I'm already very impressed with all the effort, the amount of work you've all put into it, and appreciate all the feedback and effort. Because you know, the job that you're doing right now is really going to outline at least the next 10 years of what development's going to look like in your area. And so it's really important that this feedback is coming from you. So I really appreciate all your time and efforts, and I hope to continue to support you and help further your needs out in that area as I start growing more into this role. So thank you, everyone. I appreciate you.
Thank you, Supervisor Vasquez. Let me go to, I think Harriet Young joined us, and then I'll go to Liz Baldwin.
Sorry, I don't know what I've got turned on or not. There we go. Okay. Yeah, thanks. I was a little bit late. I was, you know, killing rats somewhere else. And I think it's shaping up well. And I took the tour about 3 weeks ago of the guidelines that we had laid out. And it's really interesting. There are places I had never traveled. So I hope all of you guys get a chance to drive the proposed tour of the area. It's very interesting. As I said, I learned a lot. Things that I didn't even know we had. So I think we're doing a good job. Thank you.
Thank you, Harriet. Let me move to Liz Baldwin, please.
Liz Baldwin here. I am applauding this, whoever worked on this committee for this particular goals and policy. This is a wing dinger with a lot of detail, and get ready for transportation because that's going to be real fun too. And I've not done the tour yet, but I'm looking forward to it because in transportation, there are so many streets and so many places we're addressing that I have to go out and investigate it. So sorry I was late, but another committee too. So, yep. But whoever was on this committee, thank you so much because it's in detail, and I know it's hard for everybody, but a lot of work was put in this one. So thank you.
That would be Mr. Ruggles.
Okay, of course it was Mr. Ruggles, my hero. There he is, right there. Yeah, John.
That's an embarrassment, Liz.
Oh, come on. You're my hero. You know that.
Let me ask if we have any other committee members who joined us after the introductions. Hearing none, I'm going to ask the committee members, would you like to take a 7-minute break?
Brian, one quick question here.
Yes, sir.
Are we going to work on the noise mitigation policy at some future date?
The which policy?
Noise mitigation.
Yes, I believe that will be handled. I think that's going to go back to John and whoever else is.
Okay, great.
DRO.
That's right. That's what I think we should do. Thank you.
Yeah, I think we can get you covered pretty well on that one, Rob.
Thanks, John.
And that might address the gentleman who asked about the noise breaks as well. I don't know if that would fit here or in transportation.
Just as a clarification, the policy regarding truck brakes, engine brakes.
Oh,
that is already in, I believe it is in community character. So we can point that out to you though, but this would be a separate policy here.
Yep, because it would be commercial or industrial. Yeah. Okay. I say we take a 7-minute break, let folks get up and stretch a bit, and we'll see you.
Do you want to say at what time? At
I've lost my phone.
It says 7 o'clock. It's 7 o'clock right now.
7:07. See you back.
Thanks, Brian.
You bet. Thank you.
Melissa, are you still on?
Yes.
Are you still on for tomorrow at 9? Did you get my other email? Do you want to go later or do you want to do it at 9? 9?
9's fine. Is that fine with you? Oh, you're muted.
Yes. Yes, that will work for me because I got something at 11. So I hope we can punch through some stuff in 2 hours. Do you have 2 hours? Or you just want to do it an hour?
Whatever works for you.
Okay. We'll just see how far we get because I brought my map. So we'll see.
Okay,
I talked to Patrick. Okay. Thank you, dear.
Great. Thank you.
I just wanted to comment, Melissa, that I did the driving tour.
Yeah.
And Conley does not go through anymore. Somebody dumped a lot of rock and gravel and stuff to cut Conley in half.
Oh.
So you can't drive through it anymore.
Oh, is that a private road?
I guess so. Looks like mostly private roads out there.
Oh.
None of them are up to code.
Oh, okay, then, yeah.
So we just drove around.
Hey, Bernice, if you're on there.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I've been stretching as we do this. Plus, I was late. When everyone said further up this policy and goals, it was about shielding trash and the equipment and all that stuff. They said, well, it was already addressed in zoning. But did you think that was good enough? That was section, because so many times we reiterate what's important to us, like, you know, rule setting and lot spaces, but was it addressed in this area or in this policy about shielding? Like it was like a whole paragraph about shielding equipment and barrels, and they go, no, that's already addressed in zoning and planning, and so they just took it out. It was early when I first came on, and I just joined, and I didn't want to make a big stink about it, so I said, okay.
You know, I'm so tired, I can't even think of where to find it.
I'll talk to Melissa about it. But, you know, I think it's so important because I think we have to reiterate, it's not okay to have all trash in your yard, whether it's old broken down equipment that doesn't work or an old washing machine. I mean, I think it's all considered the same.
But some people think it's art.
An old washing machine?
Yeah, we have a neighbor that's still got one over there.
No, but I mean, like, not the drum that you put plants in. I mean, like you know what I mean. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So anyway, but you're too tired. So
I'm gonna go take a break. So I've been sitting for way too long.
All right. See, I have it.
All right.
Okay. Thank you, dear.
I'll be back.
Yeah.
All
Thanks
right.
for answering me today too.
Oh, you're welcome.
Hey, Dave Wessel, can you hear me? Hello, Dave.
Yes, I can.
Hey, I was curious, can you tell us who at ADOT we would be wanting to talk to about engine brakes? Is that somebody local or?
Wow, that's a good question. I really don't know. But I can find out for you.
Okay, I was just curious.
Rob,
Yeah,
I sent Melissa a name of the ADOT Community Relations Officer here in Flagstaff, and
place to start.
And that's where the public needs to start before anything happens.
Excellent.
Is that Mackenzie Kirby?
No, it's just forgot his name. I'd have to look it up again. But anyway, wait a minute, I can find it here.
See, it's not in chat.
It was in chat. Oops. I sent it to Melissa.
I just got back. I'm sorry. You're looking for the contact for.
That contact that I gave you
Okay,
for
let
Dave.
me, I'll copy it and send it out to everybody. How is that?
Yeah. I can't remember his name. Doug,
Doug Carroll.
Carroll. Thank you. I had Cooley and I knew that wasn't right. So yeah, he's the public communications and
Thank you.
relations. So
Great. Hopefully Russell will get that.
There it is.
Sorry, I'm looking like I should be telling ghost stories.
You definitely are.
Do you have any stories?
Always has stories. You always have stories, Dave.
So Melissa, I'm sitting here doing other stuff while I'm listening. So this is really running traffic models. It's exciting.
Oh, wow. I wish I could be doing that.
Yeah, you guys going to be getting to, yeah. Are you guys getting to traffic or transportation here in a bit or not tonight?
Not tonight, Dave. We're not finished.
Okay.
So it's not ready. We're going to jump into land use next, which is, and it's 7:07. Is Brian back with us? I don't see Brian back yet. I'll start screen sharing though.
he must still be eating his pate.
Hey, Dave, are you Dave W?
Always a comedian.
Are you still here with us or did you take off and stretch? Oh, he's gone. He's muted.
What's up?
I was just going to say, I sent you an email. Did you get it saying thank you so much for all your comments and all your hard work?
No, but you're welcome. I'm sure it's
I'm
in
sure
there
you
somewhere.
did. You're just
welcome.
so always, everyone always comments to you. So, I was just a brief email, but that's okay. I just wanted to say thank you because you made some good points and we're going to attack it tomorrow.
Tomorrow? Oh.
Yes, tomorrow. And once I talk to Melissa, I'm going to call you back up because there's a big gap in some trails that we say are connecting, but they really don't exist because I checked them out on my bike. So anyway, but thank you for all your hard work, you and Nick. Thank you.
Sure. Yeah, it was fun. It wasn't the formal tour, but it was
Right.
fun driving around and seeing what all is going on in the neighborhood.
Right.
I think we're still waiting for Brian to join us.
Give one quick neighborhood update. The place that has been Bill's Welding for the last 40 years is now going to be American Trailers, a utility trailer sales location.
Oh, when did you learn that?
A couple days ago. That property has been sold.
Has that been vacant property for a while?
No, it's been an operating welding shop.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm thinking of a different place. Sorry.
Yeah, I knew something was coming
Bill
along
is
like
a
this.
wonderful resource. He built my spiral staircase between my first and loft back 30 years ago. And it was hand done. It's just a wonderful piece of artwork in the middle of my living room. He's a great guy.
Yeah, he's been trying to sell the property for quite some time. And it was pretty obvious something like this was in the works because all the old farm equipment disappeared. I noticed today there's a lot of clear space over there.
All the farm equipment went back to his mom's house up the street.
Okay.
I think Russell is still with us. Russell, did you get the information in the chat?
He gave us a thumbs up, so I'm guessing he did.
Okay.
Yes, I did. And I was very thankful to hear that. So,
perfect.
And I want to mention one other thing too, real quick on that. I talked to a friend today who lives out at the east end of Townsend, Winona. This is not on like an ADOT road or a Interstate 40 or anything, but he said that yesterday there was just engine brakes coming down from that cinder hill out there where they harvest cinders. And he lives right at the foot of that. And they were coming down that hill using the engine brakes to slow the vehicle down. So it's not just on 89 or Silver Saddle. There's other places also. So there you go, a little more information.
That, Russell, actually brings up a perfect example of a commercial activity that has a noise issue associated with potential buffers that you'll be working on, John.
Brian, are you back with us?
Yes,
okay.
I am back. Excuse me. Got sidetracked.
Rob, I got my hands full with pushing on people to get the new lighting ordinance in. So that's next.
So can I bring us back to our task at hand?
Please.
Thank you. Melissa, we're working on residential goals.
We are in the land use growth and development chapter.
Should we have a section of it that addresses things like noise and actually smells too? Because some of the places that have marijuana grows, oh my God, the smell can get really bad.
I'm going to tell you, there's a difficulty with that. It is, how do you quantify that?
What about Nestle Purina? There was kind of a...
Well, that's in the city, of course, but the city did place some requirements on them that have resulted in a considerable decrease in the smell of the food processing there.
Mm-hmm.
However, some people have very sensitive smell as opposed to others like myself who do not. And it is very difficult to regulate something like that because how do you quantify it?
Well, Bernice, are you suggesting that that be added as a policy to the design review section that we just finished?
It just brought up when we started talking about the noise at the Cinder Hill and the brake noise, I thought about how, some of these places that have, that are far beyond us that already have a lot of grows and processing plants for marijuana, they really have a lot of smells coming out of them.
If that's, yeah, would you mind, and if the rest of the committee is on board with that, then just writing just a sentence or two about how that could be crafted into a policy for the DRO.
Yeah,
that's where that would go.
Bernice, I'd like to make one comment to you on that. That's a very good idea, and it's something that should be in there as a policy, something we can consider at the Planning and Zoning Commission level when we look at use permits or rezoning.
Okay. I'm not quite sure how to word it.
Yeah, I think just throw some ideas out there and then we can figure out how to fit it in. But it would, the appropriate location would be in the chapter we just finished, the design review overlay.
Okay.
To address, odors. And I think it is particular, like you say, to certain industries. So we can do some research on that.
The marijuana industry, there's other industries too.
Right. We can do some research into how that might best be handled.
Okay.
Thank you. I don't mean to overburden you, but that would be helpful if you could just put an email out there.
I'll see what other areas may have done that are already dealing with the situation.
Yeah, I know there are policies there that we could reference. Brian, do you think we're ready to jump into this?
Yes, we are, or I am.
So I just wanted to preface this by saying this version that we're reviewing on land use growth and development goals and policies has been reformatted pretty significantly since the subcommittee reviewed it. And so I didn't include most of those track changes because it got too overwhelming and completely obscured the intent of the document. So I see Dave laughing. I mean, he knows what that looks like. So That's why I sent you two versions. I sent you the current 2001 goals and policies and then this version for comparison. So anyway, and I do want to mention that this is 7 pages and it is 7:15. So we will go through these and take the time that you need to review them. But there is, this is probably, this and transportation are probably the two more complicated sections. So with that, we'll get right into it.
Would you like me to read these, Melissa?
I can still read unless you want to.
No, you go ahead.
Okay, residential goals. The rural character of the area is preserved by encouraging new residential development to maintain existing gross zoning densities on private lands within the rural growth boundaries. And I can flip back to the map really quickly if that would help explain what that means, because the rural growth boundaries are boundaries that were designated by the regional plan and they are on the map. Would that help everybody to see that?
Those were the different colors, is that correct?
The different colors are the zoning districts.
Okay.
The rural growth boundaries are actually lines.
Okay.
Quick question, Melissa. Is there any part of the Doney Park area as designated that is outside of the rural growth boundaries of the plan? I don't have the map in
Yeah,
front of me.
let me show the map really quick if you don't mind. I think that would help here because there are some, but they're all Forest Service land. Let me go back here and I'm going to zoom way in. And I don't know, so I'll just kind of use my cursor. So again, the green and the yellow with the hatching behind it, that is Forest Service land. The rural growth boundaries, I'm not able to zoom in far enough here, but they follow all of the private land basically. Okay, so it goes like that. And again, that is intended to be an indication of where development should occur within those rural growth boundaries. Okay, if that helps to show you this
Melissa,
illustration.
let me show you my ignorance. You said the green and the yellow. So I'm sure you've told us this before. I don't remember this. The green and the yellow with the hatching. What's the difference between the green and the yellow?
Good question. Actually, the green means that it's Forest Service land that is unzoned.
Okay.
The yellow with the hatching behind it means it's Forest Service land that does have zoning on it. It doesn't mean it can be developed. It still is Forest Service land.
But zoned like zoned forest?
It's zoned, it's actually zoned residential.
Huh.
Melissa, would it not be better to refer to it rather than as the regional plan as the Doney Park area plan within the boundaries of that?
Let me go back to, did everyone, I'll stop this share and let me go back then to the document. I think it refers to the rural growth boundary.
But rural growth boundaries is terminology from the regional plan, I believe.
Right, and that's where this is derived, though. The regional plan identified those rural growth boundaries.
Right.
And we're
the residential goals we're addressing are within the Doney Park area plan boundaries.
Right. Oh, I see what you're saying in this goal here.
So if there is not 100% overlap between the two, then we're missing something in the way we call it out.
Well, they are. I mean, so the rural growth boundaries shown on the map that we just looked at match the regional plan rural growth boundaries.
As long as that occurs, then that isn't a problem.
Yeah, they're identical. That's where we get the information.
Why are we even calling it something different here?
It's not. It's the same thing.
Well, the area plan boundary as opposed to the rural growth boundary.
Well,
yeah, Rob's got a good point, and that was mine initially also, same thing.
Because the area plan boundary is bigger than the rural growth boundary. It's not the same.
Well, then actually it should be, it should not be the rural growth boundaries, but the area plan boundary. That's what we're dealing with, because essentially that says a part of this doesn't apply to some of what's within the Doney Park area plan boundaries.
Let me go back to this, because I think that maybe I'm not being clear. So the area plan boundaries are this darker line out here. Can you see my cursor?
Yeah.
Right.
So for instance, on this eastern boundary, this is the area plan boundary, right?
And we want these policies to apply to that boundary.
And if we look at the policy, then the policies are intended to apply to all of the areas within the rural growth boundary, which are tighter.
But the other problem will come if some of that land that is Forest Service property becomes private property via a land swap, and then you have the code provision that it becomes open space at that point. But I think it is more appropriate to address it as the Doney Park area plan boundaries, because that says we're not covering a lot of this other than what the code covers.
Melissa, is there a reason to exclude those areas? It seems counterintuitive to exclude them.
Yeah, I'm with Rob on that.
Yeah, no, I understand what you're saying, and this is a good point of discussion. And if we read the goal, the goal is really addressing new residential development to maintain existing growth densities on private land
within the Doney Park area plan boundaries, not the rural growth boundaries. Because you're looking down at this out into the future.
At 20 years from now, a land swap could occur, and hundreds of those acres of green checkered land could become private property. And we would want these same characteristics to apply to them.
Exactly.
I'm wondering also
good clarification.
If this is a question that needs to be considered there with your other planners, Melissa. I'm not disputing at all what Rob and John are saying. I actually agree with them. I'm just wondering if we need to get a second opinion as to whether it's the Doney area plan or if it's both.
Well, you have the regional plan, Brian, that is got those boundaries in it.
Mm-hmm.
That gets considered when development is done within those boundaries. But it doesn't apply to areas outside of those boundaries that are still within the Doney Park area plan boundary. So I think that's a no-brainer.
Don't we?
I see what you're saying now.
I think Harriet's trying to talk too.
Yeah, I am. Because I keep thinking of lawsuits. And I think I agree with all you guys. Let's try and be really clear what we're talking about and what we think these rules are covering, because we may think that we've shielded ourselves and we haven't done the language correctly. So we don't want to have to go to court and waste money litigating stuff.
Harriet's actually a perfect example. She probably borders the forest behind her. And
absolutely. Yeah,
that
absolutely.
Land is, and so her lot is that boundary that Melissa was just showing us.
Yeah,
and
it
if there was a land swap, that could change, and what happened behind her then wouldn't be subject to this document.
Right. Right. Thank you. I appreciate that. Exactly, sir.
Just keep in mind that you still have the added protection of what is in the zoning ordinance right now that covers a land swap, but this is only a policy document. So if something like that comes to a different planning and zoning commission that is willing to give a developer everything he asks for, all bets are off relative to the policy here. Although I don't see that happening in the near future.
So it looks like Melissa's done a good change then to cover this.
You bet.
To me, it just, ask for all of it. And even if we would expand out into those areas, we want to be covered already with what we're putting in the area plan.
Yeah, Dave is absolutely right, because if we restrict it to the rural growth boundaries, a developer can come back and say, well, your policy doesn't cover any of it, what we're doing here. So you bet.
And then we'd have to go to court. That's my point. It would just, let's save money now.
Or just make it clear now.
Yep. Or do both. Good conversation. Are we ready to move on to the policies? Melissa?
If the committee is wanting to go on there, let's do that.
I'm not hearing other comments.
Okay.
Are there any other comments from other committee members?
Okay, let's go on then.
Yep.
So the first one, the existing large lot zoning AR 2.5 and AR 5 should be retained except as described in the following policies.
Comments?
No, good.
Okay. Number
Go to
2.
number 2.
Residential zone changes, especially those that would result in increased density, are strongly discouraged and should be approved based on the criteria described in this section. The applicant should demonstrate compliance with the provisions of this policy. So 2A, zone changes may be considered if significant and clear benefits to the planning area residents have been identified and are supported by planning area residents. Such benefits may include 1, protection and preservation of environmentally sensitive areas and habitats such as the Rio de Flag and wildlife corridors. 2, preservation of archaeological sites and important geologic features such as volcanic cones. 3, provision of public recreational trails that link area and regional trails. 4, provision of recreational parks and facilities. 5, other valued public amenities identified and supported by the community. And 6, providing additional housing opportunities for a range of incomes and household sizes. So those would be the benefits to the community that would need to be identified for a zone change.
Got a change for you. Why not say residential zone changes, especially those that would result in increased density, should not be approved based on the criteria described in this section, because you are giving a series of factual findings that you would have to make and evaluate in order to make those changes. That's what I'd like to see if something like that comes before us on the Planning and Zoning Commission. Don't approve it unless it makes it can meet the findings you have here.
John, does that kind of cover what Biden was saying, I think today or yesterday in the news, about he wants to increase housing opportunities because there's a housing shortage nationwide? And I was like, and he said in rural communities. So is that, because that kind of shocked me today. And then when we're saying providing additional housing opportunities for range of incomes and household sizes, I get it, but I'm saying that's in here. Is that going to protect that statement right there? The last one, number 6.
Well, consider it is a policy and it is up to evaluation when it gets to Planning and Zoning Commission and the Board of Supervisors to make that decision.
Okay.
But it worded strongly enough so that it says to the P&Z Commission or the board that, look, make your findings based on the facts of the matter. You have to make findings just like you would in a court of law.
Okay. Yeah, because sometimes I think if county or whatever wants to come out here and make density homes, I don't think this is even gonna make a difference. But
well, wait, this is county policy right here, Liz, that you're writing. So yeah, this will make a difference. John, does this read as you were?
Yeah, that's it. You've got it exactly.
So it reads, residential zone changes, especially those that would result in increased density, should not be approved unless based on the criteria described in this section.
Right. Should rather than shall. We can't say shall for that.
I'm concerned about that. I know the city just recently had an exemption for affordable housing in their zoning code. And I have heard a lot about that, and people that know I'm on this committee are very concerned about that. They don't feel like there should be exemptions to the zoning code that will change the rural character of our area.
I don't know how we fix that, because that last sentence in there is in there, providing additional housing opportunities for a range of incomes and household.
Well, we can provide a range additional housing opportunities without changing the zoning size.
Okay.
Oh, that's
really
what you have.
That is what you do that with the primary cost driver in home construction now is the cost of the land. And unless there's higher density, you're not going to have affordable housing.
Okay, but how much are we going to have? You know, I'm just concerned that it's going to change us from rural to suburban. And we don't have the water, we don't have the infrastructure for sewers.
That's it.
So,
you know, we have a danger to the environment, to the water table.
Bernice, look at number 1. It says the existing lot zoning A.5, 2.5 and 5 acres should be retained except as described in the following policies. So the preference right there is given to 2.5 and 5 acre parcels.
Right, the preference is, but there's a lot of loopholes in here, and you know, we don't have a boundary on how many we're going to put in. You know, I think that's a big concern for a lot of the people out here, and the survey certainly pointed in the direction of keeping it rural, keeping the large acreages.
Right.
And low density.
And low density.
And that is what you have right now. And one of the things that is very difficult is writing in a policy or in code something that is exclusionary, which can be regarded as discriminatory. We've gone through this with group homes and like other jurisdictions, that sort of thing. What we had to take out of the code was extremely discriminatory relative to group homes of one form or the other. And this does not give you a green light for high density multifamily housing.
And I would like to echo on that. The plan should address how you will want to see what the criteria that you would like to see your rezonings evaluated under. If you don't address it, then there won't be any criteria specific to Doney Park, Timberline, Fernwood. Rezonings are, we can't prohibit a rezoning. That's not something that we have the authority to do. So a property owner can apply for a rezoning, and when they do, what are the criteria that you would want them to be evaluated under? That's what we're addressing here. So just wanted to, remind everybody that that is, what we need to make sure we write into this plan. This is just the beginning of these policies that address zone changes. There are quite a few more down below that get into even further detail. So I would suggest that we review the rest of these policies to see if that further tracks along with basically the vision statement, because the vision should be reflected in these policies. And, part of your vision is to maintain the rural character and the large lot zoning. So, that's something that, we should make sure is reflected in the rest of these. Does that help at all?
Yeah, so what we're saying here is that this is how we want to see it happen.
Right, if it happens.
We can't say this is what you can't do.
I think with the influx of people trying to buy homes in Flagstaff, I heard the other day that Flagstaff is like the #2 area in the state of Arizona that people are trying to buy into, and people are coming here from other areas. Even though I just don't want to see a lot of density. And after driving the area, there's a lot of places that we already have that have looks like affordable housing on it that, you know, and people can share homes. They, you know, they don't have to necessarily have land and a individual residential house, you know, until they can afford to buy, if that's what they want to do. I sold real estate for a while, and I just saw so many people that I tried to help buy places that were saving, well, trying to save up, but they, you know, it was really hard to discourage them from buying new vehicles and things like that, and getting their credit cleaned up and things like that. And
so let's stay on track if we can, Bernice.
yeah, I understand both sides of the issue, and I just really don't want to put something in here that, and number 5 too, I just, you know, what other amenities, you know, what other, you know, could it be a go-kart track or?
Well, it says a public amenity.
It could be a, you know, how close you are to a public school.
Oh, I see. Yeah. Oh, I see what you're saying, but that it's not limited to that. And I'm always trying to look, you know, look for what might be under the rug that might pop out and surprise us.
Well, Bernice, the other thing you have to keep in mind is if there was someone trying to get a zoning change, there's plenty of opportunity for public comment, both at the Planning and Zoning Commission and at the Board of Supervisors meeting that would have to approve this. So this is just providing some guidelines for them to operate from.
That's correct.
Yeah,
I just worry about losing our rural character.
Yeah.
And look at what's happening in Flagstaff. Look what's happening in Williams, you know, and I just don't want to see it happen out here. We've got too many limitations with our water, our septic systems, the environment.
And that's where we're trying to get to. We're trying to be real specific with these policies to guide any potential rezoning. And like I said, we've got quite a few more policies specific to rezonings that we should go through. So Bernice, keep that in mind and see if the rest of these address exactly what you're talking about.
Melissa, I have a request real quick.
Mm-hmm.
Jim Clifford, who's also on the Planning and Zoning, was trying to chime in. I'd like to give him a chance because he has good views that I'd like to hear. Jim?
The only way you're going to get high density housing is if we do a subdivision and we limit that to a 1 acre. If it's a 100-acre parcel and they want to do 1 acre parcels, if the adjoining area is a 1 acre minimum, we can allow them to do 1 acre minimum lots. If it's a 2.5 acre minimum lot size, that subdivision is going to be a 2.5 acre minimum lot size up to whatever they want. They could have a lot that's 10 acres, but whatever the land is around the existing area is zoned at. That is what we are going to look at when we make these changes, these zoning changes. So if I live on a 1 acre parcel and down the road from me, there's 2.5 acre minimum parcels. So that is what we look at when we are doing our subdivision zonings. So I understand what everybody's saying. High density housing to me is what you're going to see in the city, in your high rises, in your stuff like that. We're not going to have that here. We've already stated that in our one of our other policies. And this area is not, I don't believe we have enough land, buildable land left in Doney Park that would sustain a high density housing area. There's not enough property.
Yeah, I've got to concur with Jim on that one.
And the property that is open here is still most likely adjacent to some large lot property.
Okay.
Well, not necessarily. there are lots in certain, what I'm going to call a subdivision, that is a 2.5 acre minimum to a 5 acre minimum. There are still some of those lots available. But to find a 100 acre tract of land to build a subdivision on, we don't have that in Doney Park anymore. We don't have it in Timberline anymore. We don't have it in Fernwood anymore. That land has already been developed, and in the policies for that subdivision is where the zoning was laid down for AR 2.5. If that's what the developer wanted and the surrounding area was already AR 2.5. That's what our guidelines are.
Thank you, Jim.
Jim, you're saying that anything that's left is 1 acre or 2.5 or 5?
I'd like to chime in here actually, because there are some larger parcels that are not developed.
When I looked at a map, I saw larger parcels as well.
Yeah,
There are, but what are those parcels zoned at, and what are the parcels around them zoned at?
I'll show you right now.
Good, thank you, Melissa.
So that's what you have to look at.
So back to the map real quick, and we can.
Yeah, I was looking at this map today.
Okay, so the dark outline, and this was as of actually January. So the dark outline indicated a vacant parcel. Right. So these are indicating vacant parcels at the time that we did the research on these. So there are some larger parcels that are still vacant, and the yellow indicates the zoning. And I think that brighter yellow is, oh, my apologies. I don't have the legend on here.
Zoom in on those yellow ones. If we go on the site and we zoom in, because I try to do that to see how big is it. Yes, it looks big, but what is the actual?
Yeah, I'm not on that site where I can just click on.
Okay.
This is just
I tried to get on it today. Well, last week, and I couldn't get on.
So just to kind of give a sense, and then so the yellow, I think the brighter yellow that we're looking at is AR 2.5.
Okay.
Can you move north, Melissa? Because you don't show us. And we've got 13 acres sitting to our south, owned by property owners down in Phoenix. And I guess that's always been the fear up here in Girls Road.
I remember you mentioning that. Yeah.
I'm not 100% sure where you're looking, Harriet, but and this is not a great map. This is just in the PowerPoint, so I just
I have no idea where Walkie Road is in here.
Okay, yeah, we can flip to a different view if we want to look at the map for a bit.
You can keep it hypothetical, but one owner has 13 acres. The rest of us all have a 10 acre minimum and 1 lot split allowed. And that's what,
right.
So he would be held to that same thing. Am I correct?
If it's the same zoning, and just to give a perspective, can everybody see the cursor?
Yeah.
This rectangle here, that is the 70 acre flood control basin, just to give you a perspective on size.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Actually, it's 80 acres.
80 acres.
Yeah.
80 acres. Thank you.
So that lot below it, that lot that you were showing at first to the right, further down, that looked like about where was it? Oh yeah, right there, right there. See that one right there? That was only 2.5.
No, when I said no, it's zoned for 2.5 acre
Okay, but
minimum.
how many are there?
Well, for instance, on this one, it's just 1 parcel right now, but it's zoned for more.
Okay.
So when we did the build out, we did look at how much vacant land there is. And, there's over 1,000 acres of vacant residential land at the time of that analysis.
I see.
Right.
I've got a quick question for Jim. Listening to your explanation there, Johnson Ranch, I thought, ended up zoning much more densely internal to the subdivision than it did around the exterior that was zoned 2.5. Is that the case, and couldn't that happen in some of these other parcels?
I was not on the commission at that time, but John was, and he could answer that.
I can tell you that yes, the same thing could happen elsewhere depending on the size of the property and the surrounding zoning.
Yeah.
And what happened at Johnson Ranch was an effort to create open space in an area that is subject to sheet flooding at some times of the year. So the increased density in some areas got the developer the same number of lots, created an open space, and it preserved the large properties based on or the large lots based on the property that they were adjacent to or abutted.
Around the perimeter, right?
Right.
And that was Hutchinson Acres as well, correct?
No.
It had the larger lots around the outside and the smaller lots on the inside. It was like a circle.
Right. Right. That was a separate development, of course, but yes, that applied also.
So based on that, the concerns that some of the folks are expressing here about the potential for high density development internal to an existing parcel theoretically could happen.
So it could happen. Well,
let's talk a bit about Johnson Ranch though, because Johnson Ranch, the overall gross density still matched the zoning. It was clustered, so that there's a large amount of open space. But when you calculate the gross density based on the total acreage of the subdivision, it still meets the minimum zoning requirements.
Right, and on top of that, the smallest lot could be 1 acre, because otherwise you couldn't have a septic. Couldn't have a septic system because of the requirements. So the minimum lot size, even with that clustering, was
had
1
to be
acre.
1 acre, right? Does
So
that make sense
that's
to
another
everybody?
limiting factor.
So it's probably time to get back to the document and see what other
Yeah.
requirements.
Yeah.
have to be
I know,
met.
but I think these discussions are important. I think these are good.
I want to know how this prevents, tracts of multi-unit housing.
It's the zoning designation. So if we look here, number 1, existing large lot zoning, AR 2.5 and AR 5 should be retained except as described. And then down here in a later policy, right here, increases to existing zoning density should be rare exceptions and should be approved if no other means are feasible to achieve the desired benefits described above. Such zone changes should meet the following criteria. Minimum net lot size of 1 acre or greater should be maintained.
Oh, okay.
Net density increase should, so then it goes, so that's where there are a lot of other details that describe the conditions that a rezoning would need to meet after this initial policy.
So Melissa, can we get back to land use policy number 2?
Yes. So and we've read all this, so there are some subsections in this. Residential zone changes, especially those that would result in increased density, should not be approved unless based on the criteria described in this section. That was your recent edit. The applicant should demonstrate compliance with provisions of this policy. And then there's A and there's B under this. Zone changes may be considered if significant and clear benefits to the planned area, and that we just went through those 6 criteria.
Mm-hmm.
And then B is increases to existing zoning density should be rare exceptions and should be approved if no other means are feasible to achieve the desired benefits described above. Such zone changes should meet the following criteria.
So I have a question. When you say increases to existing zone density, what you're talking about is creating smaller lots of land.
Exactly. That's what a rezoning generally is. There are some times when zoning becomes downzoned essentially, but that's not often. And so as rezoning is usually going from, for instance, AR 5 to say AR 2.5.
Right.
Right. So.
Okay.
Okay, here's my ignorance again. So then you have a 1 acre lot and then they can put another structure that they can rent out and not have to be on that person's septic. Because I just noticed on Silver Saddle, there are 2 people that have these cute, anyway.
That's totally different than a rezoning because currently.
I know that rezoning. Okay, but then you could put another structure on there and rent it out and still have an issue on that, but.
You could, I mean, we're talking here about rezoning though.
Okay, all right.
Cases, yeah, specific on that.
Okay.
So everything now in Doney Park has the potential of having an ADU on it. So that could double the size of the population here
And it's
potentially
blatant,
next
it's
couple of
blatant,
decades.
Bernice, because it's on Silver Saddle. There are 3 houses that have it there.
Yeah,
With
I know.
those porches out there on this trailer and their little jacuzzi out there.
Okay, let's stay on the
Sorry,
document,
okay.
please.
Yeah, we're focused on zone changes.
Yeah, you're right. Focus on zone.
So any thoughts on B?
Yeah, on B2, net density increase should not exceed 20% for developments greater than 10 lots. So developments less than 10 lots can see a density increase. Is that correct?
That's right. And that was, and there's an example over here to help describe this. And there have been cases where one parcel that was, for instance, zoned AR5 wanted to split into 2. And I'm sorry, they wanted to rezone so that they could split into 2 parcels. And that would have matched the surrounding zoning. Everything else was zoned for 2.5 acres. Because of the existing policies in today's plan, that was not allowed. So that wasn't approved. So that's where, that this change was something that we would recommend. So that would help to, for developments greater than 10 lots, would limit a zoning density increase to not more than 20% of that existing zoning.
Okay. I got it. Thank you.
Does that make sense to everybody?
Makes sense to me.
Yep, makes sense.
Is there a way that could be used to increase density? Is there, okay, 1 acre lots, 1 acre lots. If you only had 5 of them, you could increase the net density more than 20% if you only had 5 1 acre lots.
Say that one more time, Bernice. I'm sorry.
Okay, if you had 5 1 acre lots, because it's less than 10, you could have a net density increase greater than 20% because you have less than 10 lots.
You could, but right up here, right above it, minimum net lot size of 1 acre or greater should be maintained.
I don't even understand that.
I think what Bernice is saying is if I owned 10 acres and I wanted, if I owned 5 acres and I wanted to rezone it into 5 1 acre parcels, then that would be exceeding the 20% for the development.
And
goes back to what is
right.
the land zoned it for around that 5 acres?
There you go.
It would need to match.
Exactly.
Number 3 right here, lots that are adjacent to residentially zoned land should be of equal or greater size than the adjacent parcels.
That catches it right there.
So that's why, this is
that catches it. Yep.
a lot of detail here, and it's, yeah.
And that is not just a should, that is in the code. You're going to have to do that. You don't have any leeway to change that unless you go for a variance.
In the subdivision ordinance, that's what you're referring to. Yeah, it's in our subdivision ordinance as a, and that's called for technical purposes, a minor subdivision. So we haven't opened that book with everybody. I don't think we want to at this point, but that John is exactly right. That makes it consistent with our subdivision ordinance.
Is John saying it shouldn't be should? It is to be, or zone?
No, this matches what our subdivision requirements, how the subdivision ordinance is written.
Yeah, you can still leave it in the policy document.
Yeah, it should be in the policy document.
Because who knows, the zoning ordinance could change in the future.
Right.
And this got to be in there for 10, 20 years. And if there is a change, then you know, somebody on the Planning and Zoning Commission would need to look at this as a policy to help them make a decision on what to do with it. Same thing with the Board of Supervisors.
So we have to look at all of these together in terms of the impacts of and how a potential zone change would be evaluated. Number 4 then is that another criteria is that the proposed change is strongly supported by planning area residents.
And I want to make a note, it says planning area residents, not residents adjacent to the property. Which to me, that enlarges the population. And so Bernice, it probably provides more protection for it.
And
But then only people within 300 feet need to be notified, right?
No, we usually
No.
notify a much greater distance.
How
And-
great of a distance?
It all depends on where the project is, and that's why the flexibility is built into the code. Sometimes it's gone out as far as a mile.
Yeah, and anybody who doesn't think the
You know,
Board
I
of
would think that
Supervisors
if
takes that into consideration. Recent case in Pittman Valley, where we had the wagon wheel standpipe.
B&H customer story.
People,
With professional wildlife photographers and B&H customers for 30 years.
Somebody needs to mute,
Somebody's
please. Thank you.
needs to mute themselves.
anyway, I can assure you that by the time something like that got to the Board of Supervisors with the current board, that really gets taken into consideration, and it's a pretty wide area beyond the notification area.
I have a question. This is Evelyn, where it just says the proposed change is strongly. That could be taken, I don't know, it just seems like strongly should be better defined.
Evelyn, do you have a suggested adjective?
No, I don't. I just, want to throw it out there.
Definitively.
Harriet suggested definitively. That comes back to, how do you quantify that?
Yeah.
So we're still on number 4.
Yes, we are. The question is the adjective.
Yeah, just wondering if the other committee members kind of, to me, it just seems like strongly isn't.
Is it strong enough?
Oh, well, it's not defining enough. It's like, okay, 50%, 60%, 80%, 90%. Strongly, I don't know. I think it could be torn apart.
Generally?
I think generally is, yeah, okay, well, so what?
Okay.
That's generally.
That doesn't work.
I don't want it there because it's going to increase traffic through my neighborhood. I don't want my kids getting run over when they're out there on a bicycle. That's strong.
Yes, that is.
I kind of like strongly.
I like it. I like it. I think, it's telling the planning, it's telling the people that make the decisions that, hey, you're going to step on a whole lot of toes here if you got a problem.
Yeah.
I was wondering what everybody else thought. That's fine.
Yeah.
I like strongly.
And on the planning and zoning board, we do take comments from the public very seriously when we do anything. If the public is not supportive of it, if they're not strongly supportive of it, we can deny it because we side with our constituents who are the general public. So I think strongly is a very good word to have there.
Mm-hmm.
There's a suggestion in the chat to use the word unanimously.
No. You're never going to get.
I don't think you can get that.
That implies 100%. So
not possible.
Okay, this is good stuff. This is not easy work to get through. It is 8 o'clock, so I'm going to kick it to Brian to see what we want to do.
Well, I'm going to ask the committee. I'm personally beginning to fade myself. But how are the rest of the committee members feeling? Do you want to go for another 15 minutes? You want to call it quits and come back next month?
I don't think in 15 minutes we're going to accomplish enough to really make a difference.
That's probably true. We could go another half hour.
And a half hour is probably longer than we're going to be able to perform things in an efficient function. So,
Yeah, hey, I've got to agree with Rob on that. Personally, I could go till the sun comes up, but I don't think anybody else here.
No,
Since the sun came up.
That simply tells you how many hearings that I have been a part of where they have darn near done that.
Yeah, well, I don't think we're in the place to do that.
It's already been a 16-hour day. What's another hour or two?
No.
Oh, please.
I need my beauty sleep.
John's just drinking that Macy's coffee. I know what you're doing, John.
Melissa, how much is left in this?
Okay, let's do a quick, we'll just scroll through. So we're on page 2 of 7. Okay, and just going to scroll through. You all have this document, and I would suggest that actually some of the toughest work is right at what you're looking at right now in terms of complexity and the need for really understanding and debating, you know, because these are not always easy concepts.
I think because it is difficult topic, that if some of us are kind of tired out, maybe it just makes more sense to hold off and do difficult stuff for another meeting.
I second that. I've got a very early morning.
What about another one of the short meetings?
We could do that.
Well, Melissa, I know I worked on this in the smaller group. Would it be helpful for the smaller group, what do I want to call it, the subcommittee, to go back and reevaluate what's here and see if we come up with other changes so that we can move through it more quickly when the full committee gets together?
Actually, I think it would be best if the full committee has a chance to go over what is here, because there's some pretty substantial changes that have been addressed in this.
There have been.
One thing to consider, I'm defending some of my own work here, so take that for what it's worth.
I'll take that with a ton of salt.
I would suggest
Where were you at the last meeting?
Yeah, I think it would be beneficial for, you know, everyone to look at it together. So we're hopefully, you know, moving on. And I see Supervisor Vasquez has a question.
Oh, I just wanted to make a comment. I second the idea that maybe it's time to stop, since half of you, especially the ones that are very engaged in this, are starting to fade out some. And looking at the content and how much there is to do, I think it would be beneficial to have another meeting, kind of like we did last time. And I would be open to participating in that meeting. I do have an 8 o'clock appointment that I need to make, so I'm gonna have to sign off. So I just wanted to say thank you for all your time and great efforts. And I look forward to seeing what we do on the zoning part when we meet next. So good night, everyone. And thank you for all your time.
Good night. Thank you.
Good night. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you, Supervisor Vasquez.
Thank you, Supervisor Vasquez. Great.
You're welcome. Good night.
Good night. Would you all want to entertain another meeting in 2 weeks on the 22nd of April?
Hello?
I would.
I think
Go ahead. Let me take the phone call.
Hello?
Hi.
Yes.
This is Judy. I'm really excited about your plan and been listening, and I just want to commend everyone for taking part of in this endeavor, and that, you know, all is going to go well. And I trust that, you know, this it's something that, we're all gonna have, we'll all get accomplished. And I just want to say, I so far, I've been just listening in on these meetings, and it makes a lot of sense. I've come to learn some more terminology, and people in attendance are explaining. So I'm learning through this process. So I just want to say thank you very much for all your efforts, and also what Geronimo said, I think it would be good to have another session, to complete. And it is tiring after 3 hours of intense, reviewing of documents. So I just want to say thank you to everybody that's been involved in this process. Thank you.
Thank you, Judy.
That was Supervisor Begay. So thank you very much, Supervisor Begay.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
I say that we stop discussion now and we continue with the agenda, which I think, because we still have public comment to go through.
Right. Did you want to schedule another meeting now before we get off of this, or go back and
That would be
do
a
that?
good idea.
Okay.
It would either be the 22nd or the 29th. John, 29th is the day after our PZ committee.
Well, I think we only have one case.
Yeah.
So that shouldn't be much of a problem. I won't feel like I'm burned out.
Yeah, it's not going to be a late night.
Yeah.
22nd sounds good to me.
22nd for me as well.
I won't be available, but
Oh,
that should
good.
not stop the rest. Good. Yeah.
You deserve that, Brian.
It's Earth Day, so there's a lot of things going on for Earth Day, so I won't be available either.
Oh, right.
29th.
29th, which is the last Thursday of the month.
I think that works better.
Okay, and that would still give you 2 weeks then between meetings, because the next meeting would be May 13th.
Yep.
Yeah. 29th will work.
Okay.
I won't be able to be there on the 29th.
Yeah, I also have a work commitment on the 29th. Sorry, guys.
I'll be out of town.
Would Melissa, would we still have a quorum? Because I heard 2 people say that they would not be available the 29th.
Well, you could, even with without 2 people. Yes, you could.
We need 7 for a quorum. Is that
yes.
correct?
What about a Wednesday, the 21st?
Available.
I gotta go sick. I don't.
Available.
Available.
That'd work.
That would work.
Wednesday, the 21st?
Yeah.
Okay. Same time, 5 o'clock?
Sure thing.
Okay.
Okay.
Melissa, I'm not available, but I wish everyone luck.
Brian?
Hey, no comment.
Are
Brian.
you going to be somewhere eating your pate?
Yes, I am.
Okay, that's fine.
I'm leading a tour for a group, and I will be gone for 7 days.
Nice. Okay. Well, you can give us your comments beforehand then, Brian.
Yes, ma'am.
Send them to John.
Yeah. And do your homework.
And I did want to, before we're going to get back, I'll get back to the PowerPoint very quickly, but I did want to show everybody this second sentence that I typed in. I don't know if anybody caught it.
Yeah, I did.
And this then does work to protect some of the forest land by saying new development remains on private lands within the rural growth boundaries identified by the Flagstaff Regional Plan.
Remains or should remain?
Well, should. Well, that's a goal. I mean, is your goal to have it remain on private lands?
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, the
Either way.
policy would be should.
That's good. Yeah,
The
should.
goal
Yeah.
would be without it.
How'd you sneak that in there?
I typed while everybody else was discussing something.
Well, I was certainly paying attention to you while you were doing that.
Okay, well, before I hit save, I wanted to bring that to your attention. And does that fit with the other sentence?
I
Yes.
believe it does,
Okay.
because it actually ties the two together.
I think then it's two concepts that are very related, but then the second sentence can help to preserve your existing Forest Service land. Okay, great. So I've got a note. We'll go back to the rest of the slideshow and conclude with your schedule, which we are now working on goals and policies. So we're going to finish up the land use, growth and development, and then have the transportation chapter to finish. Once we're finished with those, then we can schedule the open house. Okay. And then now our next meeting, our next sub meeting would be on April 21st, a Wednesday at 5 o'clock. And then after that, May 13th, and continue with the goal and policy review and then plan for the open house. And then Brian, with that, here we are.
So I'd like to start with public comment. So for those individuals who are not members of the committee, but are community members, you have 3 minutes if you'd like to share something with the committee. Is there anyone who would like to speak?
I see the Hall family raise their hand.
This is Russell Weidman. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I wanted to say from many years of building, and at the end of the day, trying to get a few more boards cut when I was tired. And that's where I usually made a mistake. So I think that you did the right thing ending the meeting early tonight, because residential zone changes are very important. And you should have as much time and be fresh when you're discussing them. So I'm thankful for that. And something on a lighter note, going back to invasive species, we were mentioning, or someone was mentioning, Russian olives and Siberian elm, and using those two trees as an example. They can be invasive in certain areas, and other areas they are not. Siberian elm are extremely invasive in town, and it's because people have created an environment for them to be invasive in. They'll, raise sidewalks, split foundations, all this other stuff. But out in the wild, out here where I live, they are not invasive. I planted 660 feet of them 30-something years ago, and I had more of a hard time keeping them growing. I never had one spread anywhere, including in the whole area where I live. And the same thing went true with Russian olives. So there can, even though they're a non-native species, they can be a place for something like that. It's not always a bad thing. Anyway, there you go. And thank you for all the work you do.
Thank you, sir. Any other community member who would like to speak?
Yes, I think can y'all hear me now?
Who is speaking, please?
My name is Jacob Hall. I live over off of Manning Road, off of Townsend, Winona.
Okay.
And I guess the main thing I'm like to hit on is I am on a forest boundary with in the 40 acres that are right next to my house. There's a ton of archaeological sites. There's actually one with a number on a tree that looks like it was an old pueblo, which is near the Rainbow Ranch Road where the other pueblo is and stuff. Is there going to be a statement in all this to kind of reiterate the importance of the archaeological sites, or is it just going to be mainly when it's dealt with during planning and zoning?
We have already done some of the discussion on the archaeology, and we are strongly advocating protection of those archaeological sites.
Cool. Awesome. Yeah, I just live on the boundary, and I'm always scared. There's the Turkey Hills are state trust land, and I'm always worried that someone's going to swap out this state trust land first, and then it won't be soon after that the rest of it will go. You know. But I appreciate your work. Y'all are doing great. Thank y'all very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Any other community member that would like to share a thought? Hearing none, I'd like to go to committee members. So members of the actual committee, if you have a quick thought, please try to articulate it so we can all get some sleep tonight.
Real quick, I'd like to say thank you to Sheila Walsh for her letter. I concur with her completely, and this explains some of the input that I heard from one of my neighbors who is a bicycle racer about the paved paths and trails back when the 2010-11 planning and consideration of the trail network was done. That uncovers the rationale for what I heard about how great that would be. I do not think that we need any kind of paved trails to the extent Sheila talked about. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you, John. Dave, was your hand going up?
Yep, I just want to say that you know, I was just looking back on this. It's been what, a year, over a year, but I've been and am still on a number of committees and commissions, and I really appreciate how much work and effort that everybody on the committee here is putting into this. It's all serious stuff, and you're working on it really hard. So I thank you for being a good committee.
Thank you for being part of it, Dave. Other committee members, go ahead and speak up.
Just one quick thought. The thought or the idea of bicycle racers using the paths, it kind of brought to my mind the fact that electric bikes are now becoming far more popular, and we're going to see electric powered bicycles going 30 and 40 miles an hour on trails that we wouldn't otherwise expect that to happen. And so that's something we may, when we get into the transportation section of this, want to talk about.
That's a good point, Rob. Liz, would you make note of that since you're the...
Yes, I was going to say, I want to have a total discussion on that topic and also on Walsh's, I think it was named Walsh, comment and that nice email she sent us, because we're addressing that. And there's some rules and regulations we got to consider when you're thinking paved versus gravel versus compost or different composite kind of road settings, because I've talked to the Forest Service, but we will address that. Yeah, thank you.
So you're having compost on the trails and I'm having...
Sorry, no, I said composite.
That's karma right there.
Hello,
that was karma, Liz.
Right.
Put some pate on your compost.
Pate on my compost, yes.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad this committee can laugh together.
Oh, you betcha.
That's very important.
You guys are awesome.
Other committee members.
I'd like to say thank you to all the people from the public that are joining our meetings. Please spread the word and try to get more people to participate.
Yes.
But this, this has been a really long haul. It's been like, what, a year and 3 months, and we've had a lot of meetings, and it encourages me to keep going when I see the people in the neighborhood that are participating. So
yep.
We really appreciate it. We need your help and your comments.
Yes.
Thank you, Bernice. Other comments from the committee?
Good night, John Boy.
I move we adjourn.
We adjourn.
Second.
Melissa, let me come back to you. I've heard the motion and the second. Melissa, do we have anything else that we need to cover?
I just want to say thank you to everybody. It's a pleasure working with you all. And like Dave said, you're working really hard, and it's noticed, and it will in the end be really, I think it will result in a very powerful document that you'll be very proud of. I did want to mention too that we have had several people contact us for that self-guided tour packet. So if anyone does get a chance to go out and do the drive, that would be great. And I do see Jay Crystalman has raised his hand.
Yeah, thanks, Melissa. Hello, everybody. Thank you for your continued participation. I think that we have not done the public call out yet.
We did, yes.
We did. Okay. I had a visitor for about 20 minutes and I must have missed that. So I apologize. Thank you.
Thanks, Jay.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Melissa. Good job.
Jay, thank you for, sitting in on these meetings and keeping track of what we're doing. I think it's very important to have your engagement. So thank you.
No, absolutely. I appreciate it. And I shot Melissa a comment earlier with regards to a certain participant that this committee was appointed by the Board of Supervisors, 2 of them anyways, to represent the public. And their role is to create a draft document for the public to review. So, those that want to comment during this stage of the process are free to do so during, the 3 minutes prior to the 3 minutes after. But that draft document that is for the public to review is the responsibility of this committee. And we thank you for your efforts doing so. And I don't want you to forget that. That is your responsibility and your role. And I appreciate you fulfilling that.
Thank you, Jay.
Thanks very much.
Thank you all.
Hey, Jay, I have a question for you.
Yeah, Commissioner Clifford.
Since we did have that gentleman, all of everything that we are doing is going to be gone over by legal. Am I correct in saying that?
Commissioner Clifford, that is correct. I mean, we will consult with legal on all of what we do just to make sure that it's in consistency with our zoning and subdivision ordinances.
Okay, if something happens with this gentleman, will legal be available to us for consultation as to if what we are doing is correct? Away off of the public, without having the public, where the committee members can get together with legal, like we do in the P&Z commissions meetings.
Commissioner Clifford, that's a great question. I would presume to say that that probably isn't appropriate to talk about right now, but I would presume that the open meeting law requirements and executive session stipulations would apply. But yeah, that should be discussed at a different time.
Okay.
We could research that.
Yeah. Thank you, Melissa.
Yeah, that was on the back of my mind when he was talking, a few things that he said. So, okay, thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Clifford. Appreciate it.
Yep. Have a good night.
You too.
I have one more comment. I want to give a special thanks to Melissa. Melissa, I think you've done an exceptional job keeping us on track, having things prepared on time, posting online and elsewhere. And I want to make sure that we recognize your efforts.
Oh, well, you guys make it worth it. So thank you.
Yeah,
Well
thank you,
said,
Melissa.
Co-Chair.
Amazing stuff you do.
Thank
Great
you
work.
very much.
Well, you guys are so fun. And I love that, we have the pate comments recorded. But no, back to the self-guided driving tour. Thank you, Harriet, for checking it out. And who else? Anyone else?
I did.
Oh, great. Yeah. So thank you guys. And I've sent it out to several people. So I think it's getting noticed. I think we've even gotten some online surveys. So we'll bring that back to you.
Yeah, Mary and I did it, but we haven't done a survey yet because we didn't really have time to do it properly, but we might do it again.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
You really can't do it properly in one time. I wasn't even driving. I had my husband drive, but you have to go the speed limit in certain places.
Yeah.
And it's like you need to really pull over and look. And
I'm gonna bike it. I'm gonna bike it this weekend, and I'm definitely gonna go 40 miles an hour on composite just to compost.
That sounds very dangerous.
But is that an effort to prove it can be done?
Not sure who's going to clean your bike afterwards.
Yeah, do you have a fat tire bike? I think that might be the
No,
only way.
that's
you
why
can
it's
roll
gonna
it.
be great. I'm gonna call Liz when I like fall down.
Just be safe out there.
Yeah.
Hey,
We need
It's
Melissa.
you.
organic.
Yes.
It's organic, Sailor. It's organic.
Yes, Jay.
Yeah. Does
My
the
bike
self-
slipped on a banana peel.
It's time to adjourn.
Sorry,
Yes,
Jay had a quick
I think
question.
we're adjourned.
Wait, Jay had a question. What are you asking, Jay?
Oh, it was in jest. Does the self-guiding tour have anything to do with Elon Musk?
Oh, darling.
Oh,
That was
Not,
it.
no.
Not
Well,
unless it's a
everybody picked up on
muskmelon.
that pretty quick.
Okay.
Adios,
Bye, everyone.
everybody.
All right. See you
Night.
in
All right, good night.
2 weeks.
11
Hey, good
Catch
night,
you later.
the
everyone.
21st. Thank you.
Good
Bye.
night, folks.
Bye.
Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Mhm.